Columbus, Georgia. This is your City Council. Mayor Teresa Tomlinson. City Manager Isaiah Hughley. Pops Barnes, District 1. Glenn Davis, District 2. Bruce Huff, District 3. Evelyn Turner Pugh, Mayor Pro Tem and District 4. Mike Baker, District 5. Gary Allen, District 6. Mimi Woodson, District 7. Walker Garrett, District 8. Judy Thomas, Post 9 at-large Counselor. Skip Henderson, Post 10 at-large Counselor. Tiny Washington, Clerk of Council. And City Attorney, Clifton Fay. Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 6th meeting of the Columbus City Council. Tonight we have a huge agenda, and that we have first a proclamation and resolution session, followed by our Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which is a regular and required part of our budget process. And then, of course, we'll have a full-fledged council meeting following that. So it will be a long evening. We appreciate you all being here. And we're going to go ahead and get started. We'd like to call Reverend Michael Sherman up from the Winton Hill Baptist Church. Reverend Sherman. Okay. All right. Well, it looks like Reverend Sherman's not here. So if you all would bow your heads and join me in a word of prayer, please. Dear gracious Lord, we ask that you be with us this evening as we do the work of the people of the Columbus, Georgia area. We ask that you clear our minds and open our hearts, open our eyes and our ears so that we may see, hear, and feel the needs of the citizens whom we serve. We ask, Lord, that you hold us in the palm of your hand and guide our good judgment. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen. I also want to welcome some great helpers that we have here today. We've got the YMCA summer school folks with us, and we're going to ask them to come forward and help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all would please stand and prepare for them to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Say your name and how old you are.
Well, let's get your names and tell us how old you are.
Alyssa, and I'm 7.
Great. Okay. Yes.
Kaylee, and I'm 9.
Christopher, and I'm 6.
Okay.
Georgia, and I'm 5. Trace, and I'm 9.
Okay.
Thank y'all so very much for having us, and I hope y'all have a blessed meeting.
Great. Oh, Scott, introduce yourself, and then tell us about the program.
I like to let them do all the talking. They get all the attention with our summer camp at the YMCA. We spent 4 hours in Phoenix City at their swimming pool this morning. Tomorrow we're going to meet with the library. So we have a full summer schedule going on, and we are very blessed to have a great group of young people, a great support system in our families, and we hope to keep these kids active, keep them to avoid the summer slump, and get them ready for the next grade level. So we really do appreciate all of our community partners because we all share the same mission, strengthening our communities. So thank you all very much.
Great. Well, thank you so very much. All right, guys. Have a good evening, and thank you so much for your help. We'll go ahead and get started with our proclamations. This is an opportunity for us to celebrate you all, the citizens that are doing such great work out there in Columbus. And first we want to bring forward NeighborWorks Columbus Week. If Belva Dorsey and Kathy Williams are here. Okay, I tell you what we'll do. Oh, Justin. Okay, well, come on up. And we're going to have Counselor Thomas present this proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a privilege to read this into the record. Whereas National Neighbor Works Week was initiated in 1984 by a United States congressional resolution co-sponsored by more than 260 members of Congress and signed by President Reagan. And whereas the formal introduction of National Neighbor Works Week occurred in the spring of '86 and began an annual national celebration held the first through the second Saturdays in June. And whereas National Neighbor Works Week is a celebration of neighborhood pride and unity among organizations in more than 2,500 urban, suburban, and rural communities across the country. And whereas National Neighbor Works Week celebrates the efforts of local organizations working with partners and volunteers to create healthier communities. And whereas NeighborWorks Columbus, a NeighborWorks America organization, has worked in Columbus for over 15 years and has assisted over 1,525 families in becoming homeowners. And whereas Columbus, Georgia has benefited immeasurably by the efforts of NeighborWorks Columbus to be innovative and resourceful in providing affordable housing to families in Columbus. And whereas the citizens of Columbus applaud NeighborWorks Columbus as it celebrates NeighborWorks Week. Now therefore, Teresa Pike Tomlinson, Mayor of Columbus, Georgia, does hereby proclaim the week of June 3rd through the 10th, 2017, NeighborWorks Week. Congratulations, Justin.
Justin, you want to tell us a little bit about NeighborWorks and its efforts?
Sure. Kathy Williams and Belva Dorsey, who's our current chair, I apologize for not being able to make it tonight, and I was their Plan C as the immediate past chair. But I'm Justin Krieg. I work for Historic Columbus, but also have the honor of serving on the board of NeighborWorks and have for the last 6 or so years. And Mayor and City Council, y'all are so kind to do this every year for us to celebrate and bring awareness to NeighborWorks Week. And City Manager Isaiah Hughley came and was able to break ground with us at our new building site, which is at the corner of 6th Street and Veterans, right next to Chester's Barbecue across the street. So we'll be excited to be able to serve the community a little bit better from that location in the near future. And really a lot of that was made possible through a partnership that we had with the city in helping administer some of the programs, the federally funded programs that come through the city. So we look forward to continuing that partnership and continuing the good work of providing fit and affordable housing for those people in Columbus. So thank you all very much.
Well, thank you, Justin, and please come around and let us shake your hand and present you with your proclamation. Let's give them another round of applause, folks. Hey, thank you for all you do. Next, we have the Boxwood and Lindsay Creek Neighborhood Reunion, and we want to ask all those from Boxwood and Lindsay Creek to come forward. There we go. And we're going to have Councilor Pops Barnes present this proclamation.
And it is indeed my pleasure to read this proclamation, and it reads thusly. It says, whereas neighborhood activism brings about change that can sometimes be a model to create a snowball effect for change. And whereas in September 1997, the Boxwood-Lindsay Creek Neighborhood Reunion began under the leadership of Sabrina Shealy. And whereas since inception, many other neighborhoods in Columbus have begun congregating during the year, mainly in the summer, and inviting current and past residents to attend for fun and fellowship. And whereas not only have the reunions been a time of fun and fellowship, it is believed that the Boxwood Recreation Center was saved due to the energy surrounding the planning and executing the reunions in the Boxwood-Lindsay Creek area. Thank God for that. And whereas Boxwood-Lindsay Creek community has been the home of many talented individuals, including Dallas Austin, the multimillionaire producer, and the group Basic Black, from which Calvin Bradshaw, Mucho, and Grammy nominee and multi-platinum Motown Records music producer Spec Turner emerged. And whereas among others in the community were Frank the Big Hurt Thomas, Hall of Fame inductee, and famous model Kim Porter. And whereas the citizens of Columbus, Georgia applaud Ms. Sabrina Shealy and the organizers of the Boxwood-Lindsay Creek neighborhood reunions for creating such a long-standing tradition for themselves and also encouraging others to show pride in their own neighborhoods and to create traditions as well. That's extremely important. And so therefore, Teresa Pike Tomlinson, the mayor of Columbus, Georgia, does hereby proclaim June 6, 2017 as Boxwood-Lindsay Creek Neighborhood Reunions Recognition Day in the city of Columbus, Georgia.
All right, ladies, would you like to say a few words? Introduce yourselves and tell us about the reunion and the event coming up.
Okay, my name is Sabrina Shealy, and I first organized this back in 1997. I just thought about, we came up with such great people in our neighborhood, come from a very good community as far as, just, being able to gel together. But I thought about this, and I said, let's do something positive, here in the city of Columbus. And so I started it in my yard in 1997, and it's been going strong ever since. So just trying to get, a little positive things going on instead of always violence in the city. So, I just hope that it goes on. And I wanted to add that Senator Kevin Smiley helped fund some of the reunions to help us out some years back, so I just did want to put that on record. And I just want to, let y'all know that thank y'all for letting us have them, not breaking them up with the police coming out, but we just have a great time.
Tell everyone where it's going to be at and time and all that.
This year is going to be July the 1st in Boxwood Recreation Center parking area, so we'll be there having music, fun, fellowship, and some of the names that you read out of our successors will be here this year to help us celebrate our 20th year this year.
And what times again now?
It's going to start at 5:00 p.m.
Until?
to 9.
And would you have the other ladies introduce themselves?
I'm Lisa Russell, and I'm standing in for my sister Stephanie Everett that helped Sabrina started this over 20 years ago. But I'm also a Boxwood, grow up in Boxwood as well. But yeah, it's been a pleasure just to watch them grow this from a backyard barbecue to expand it this long. It's really been a pleasure.
My name is LaMick Rolong, and I'm also from the Boxwood-Lindsay Creek area. And it's a pleasure that y'all actually had us here today, so I thank everyone for that.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Lisbon. I am also from Boxwood. This, again, is our 20th reunion. Not only is this a community, but we're actually family. We participate in everything, whether it's a funeral, a wedding, or whatever, but we all get together and we have a good time. So, again, thank you for allowing us to partake in this right now. Thank you.
Well, such
And
a
that
pleasure.
Boxwood-Lindsay Creek area is very close, many families, and produce many, many, many outstanding citizens.
Well, it's a pleasure to recognize you all in this special event, and it's such a strong neighborhood, such a strong community because of neighbors like you. So thank you for what you're doing and leading and making sure this event goes off. I'm sure it'll be a wonderful time. So come on around and let us recognize you and present you with your proclamation. Let's give them another round of applause.
that report and doing something like this, and hold on to this here, because I'll be there to read it and verify it. Thank you for starting it. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Next, we have Columbus Gay Pride Month, and we'd like to call forward Jeremy Hobbs, Patricia Lassiter, Cecilia Marie Rode, and Matasha Black St. James. All right, good evening.
Good evening. Some of those people couldn't be here today, but
Sure.
I brought some other great people in our community to stand with us.
Yeah. We're going to have Councilor Walker Garrett's going to present the proclamation this evening.
Jeremy, it's a pleasure to read this for the second time. I appreciate you all having me this weekend when I got to read this the first time, and thought you had a very well-attended celebration, and appreciate you bringing the business downtown too. That's always appreciated. But it's my pleasure to read this proclamation into the record. Whereas the fight for dignity and equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender LGBT people is reflected in the tireless dedication of advocates and allies who strive to forge a more inclusive society, and have spurred sweeping progress by changing hearts and minds and by demanding equal treatment under our laws, from our courts, and in our politics. And whereas the landmark Supreme Court decision guaranteeing marriage equality in all 50 states was a historic victory for LGBT Americans, ensuring dignity for same-sex couples and greater equality across state lines. And whereas Colgay Pride strives to better understand the needs of LGBT adults to provide affordable, welcoming, and supportive housing to aging LGBT Americans, opposes subjecting minors to the harmful practice of conversion therapy, continues to promote equality and foster safe and supportive learning environments for all students, is committed to addressing health disparities in the LGBT community, and has worked to strengthen our national HIV/AIDS strategy to reduce new infections, increase access to care, and improve health outcomes for people living with HIV. And whereas when 49 lives were lost in Orlando because they were targeted for simply being LGBT, our nation and the globe stood up and honored those lives with vigils and events around the globe. Evidence that champions of this cause at home and abroad are upholding the simple truth that LGBT rights are human rights. However, despite the extraordinary progress of the past few years, LGBT Americans still face discrimination and harm simply for being who they are. And whereas during lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Pride Month, as Americans wave their flags of pride high and march boldly forward in parades and demonstrations, let's celebrate how far we have come, reaffirm our steadfast belief in the equal dignity of all Americans, work to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists, and celebrate the great diversity of the American people. Now, therefore, Teresa Pike Tomlinson, Mayor of Columbus, Georgia, does hereby proclaim June 2017 Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month.
All right, let's give them a round of applause, folks. Jeremy, please say a few words, and we want you to introduce those that are with you this evening.
All right, I'm going to let them each come up and introduce themselves as well, but first of all, thank you, Columbus. This was our best attended Pride event we've ever done. Over 1,000 people came out that day. We added the night show entertainment, and 300 people were there at that event alone. It actually superseded my expectations. So I want to thank the people of Columbus for showing they love each other, putting indifference aside, just coming together under one area and celebrating equality for everyone. That's what it's all about. It's what it's always been about, total equality. And that's all we ask for. I mean, and the people down there were so kind. We had one little scare because of a jeweler, but whatever, but everybody hit the deck. But we had a good time, we really did. And I think our new venue, the one right next door, has actually turned out to be better than the one we had before because it's more open and the area was wonderful. I want to make some special thanks to Councilor Walker Garrett. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you for being there. Thank you for being patient with us through the sound crisis. Sheriff Donna Tompkins continued the legacy of the Sheriff's Department, became a sponsor. Marshal Greg Countryman helped us with a sponsorship. And I want to make a special note to the citizens out there. You know, when we show what people do and putting aside indifference and showing they serve all as an elected official, you know, you should not call them and try to threaten them with your vote because they want to serve all. I had a call from one of the sponsors I just mentioned, and that should not take place in this great city. Let your leaders serve all and thank them for being diverse. Thank them for serving all. Don't threaten them with your vote. Also, for the first time ever, the Superior Court Clerk Ann Hardman became a sponsor as well. And of course, the mayor's office would greatly appreciate you in, you know, making this happen for the last 4 years. Columbus, Georgia is on the map today. One of the things I mentioned, and I believe Councilor Walker Garrett heard it that day, in 2014, WTVM did a story on us about our MEI HRC score. And it was a 21 at that time. Since Mayor Thomason became mayor, it's raised up to a 38. It actually was 41 last year. We went down 2 points because they eliminated a key item. But we're at a 38. Folks, if we want to do better, if we want to bring in businesses, if we want to attract everybody, LGBT, that wants to come here, live, work, play, raise a family, open up a business, employ people, we've got to raise that score. And when I come around, I'm going to drop off one of these with you. And I will work with each of you to help raise this score. I just spoke to Chief Bourne back in the back as well. We've got to get an LGBT liaison to the Columbus Police Department. I know a lot of people want to charge money. We're not about that. We'll work with you to create the plan, to create the course, whatever you want to do that will fit your agenda, and make sure that we have an LGBT liaison officer on there absolutely for free. We'll do whatever we can to get this score up, folks. We want people to come to Columbus, Georgia. So, also, a reminder to everyone, the Pulse Memorial. We know it's said in the thing, 49 people were killed just because they were out enjoying a nightlife in Orlando, Florida. Thank you, Mayor Thompson, for being there last year and for making that happen. On the 12th this year, right in front of the Columbus Government Center on the Eternal Flame Springer side, we will host another memorial celebrating 1 year since that time. It's called #Call to Action. And we can go out there and light a candle, but what we do from that place, but how we go forward, is how we make a difference in changing those laws and making the city a better place and making the world a better place. So we'll also have 49 floating lanterns that will go up to represent each person that died in that tragedy. So I also want to turn it over now, if I can, to Matthew Jones. He has a few words to say.
Hello, I'm Matthew Jones, and I just want to say thank you for what y'all have done for the city. And for also, Teresa, I just want to give you the white flag and just say thank you for all that you have done for this city and to better. But I just want to read something here. First of all, I want to thank our LGBT community and our city for coming together and putting indifference aside and not worry about what other people think of them, and coming to the 2017 Columbus, Georgia LGBT Pride Festival this past Saturday. I want to thank the Colgate Pride and Jeremy Hobbs for making this happen. This was my first Pride event that I have ever attended. It inspired me to do more and stop worrying about what others think about me or anybody else here in this community. This event helped embolden me with strength and encourage to march forward in our quest for total equality. I want to especially thank the City of Columbus, to our Mayor, Teresa Thomason, and our City Councilor, Garrett Walker, who read the proclamation at our event this past Saturday. Today, I want to ask each of you to ensure Columbus is a We Serve All city and help us increase our MEI and HRC score. Thank you to everyone who has helped this Pride to bring this Pride so special to me, as well as 1,000 people that was in attendance. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Angie Boone.
Hi, my name is Angela Boone, Angie Boone. I've been an advocate with Jeremy since 2010 with the Better Way Foundation and also the Colgate Pride. And it's awesome just seeing how we've grown in Columbus. I'm born and raised here, and it's amazing to see how big the city has become as far as people coming together for a cause and just, just showing Columbus, people around the world, this is Columbus. We're progressing, and it's awesome. And yeah, thank you, all of y'all. Oops, sorry.
My name is Rex Woods, and I'd just like to say thank y'all for all y'all do for us. And I'm just here for support for them. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all so much for what you do and for your leadership. We want to, of course, congratulate you on the momentum and the progress that we have made as a community, and also have you come around so we can shake your hand and present you with this proclamation. Let's give them a round of applause, folks. Thank you. Thank you so much, and great words. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next, we're going to have the Columbus High School robotics team, and ask that they come forward, please, to the podium. All right. Good evening, everybody. We're going to have Counselor Skip Henderson present the proclamation this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. This is a special treat for me as a Columbus High School alumni, and Counselor Allen and I think it's safe to say we would never have been selected to this team. I'm not even sure I could get in Columbus High now, but we're just so proud of y'all. This is an amazing accomplishment. I can tell you after reading through this, I'm going to botch some of the names. So I'll do two things. One, I'll apologize in advance. And two, I want to make sure that those of you that are here correct me if I misspeak. But I am tickled to be able to read this proclamation into the record. Reads as follows. Whereas FIRST, which stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology Robotics, hosts the largest and most prestigious international robotics competition, testing high school students in the STEM skills of science, technology, engineering, and math, known worldwide as the Varsity Sport for the Mind. And whereas FIRST Robotics competition has a unique culture built around the values of gracious professionalism, promoting competition but rejecting trash talk and chest thumping, instead embracing empathy and respect for other teams and cooperation, emphasizing that teams can cooperate and compete at the same time. And whereas for the third straight year, the Columbus Space Program, officially FRC Team 4188, has successfully qualified for the FIRST Robotics World Championships and competed with more than 400 teams qualified for the 2017 FIRST Robotics World Championships in Houston, Texas, with the Columbus team competing among the finest teams from Australia, China, Israel, Mexico, and Turkey. Whereas the Columbus High team consists of, and I'm going to give it my best shot, of Josh Barton, Austin Bell, Drake Brasky, Skyla Brooks, Rohan Chandrasekhar, close, Crystal Chen, Mary Chen, Nicholas Chen, Suji Cho, Amber Deal, right the first time, Kevin Guernsey, Vineeth Harish, Darius Holland, Christine Hong, Joshua Lee, Alex Lee Bolton, Kyle Mitchell, Yobin Park, Eric Parker, Akshat Patel, Ashita Patel, Sarth Patel, Hallie Richardson, Shruti Sethuram, Victoria Thornton, Megan Thorolson, Tyler Toma, and Vivian Vu. And whereas in acknowledgement of excellent coaching of Mr. and Mrs. Luther Richardson, the masterful mentoring of Mr. Brad Thralson, Mr. Charles Barton Sr., Mr. David Rush, Mr. Brandon King, Mr. Jackie Holland, Mr. Michael Brooks, Mr. Paul King, Mr. Billy Hankins, Mr. Tim Morris, Mr. Glenn Sulser, Mr. Trevelyan, Mr. Aaron Hampton, and the ongoing support of Mrs. Vina Harish, Mr. and Mrs. Rick and Melissa Kosbob, Ms. Cindy Price, Mr. Frank Brasky, and Mr. Ben LaPointe. And whereas the citizens of Columbus, Georgia enthusiastically applaud the Columbus team and their robot, Aerostat, in achieving the distinction of being the first team from Georgia to ever make it to the finals in first Einstein competition and finishing as finalists. We join sponsors and donors United Technologies, Pratt Whitney, Aflac, Westrock, Kaiser Warren, Booz Allen Hamilton, the W.C. Bradley Company, the U.S. Army, the Columbus Waterworks, Columbus Makes It, CPAC Technology Solutions, T&S Machining, Lockheed Martin, MSC Industrial Supply, Oneida, Synovus, and Muskogee County School District in congratulating this team on a job very well done. Now, therefore, Teresa Pike Tomlinson, the Mayor of Columbus, Georgia, hereby proclaims Tuesday, June 6, 2017, Columbus Space Program Robotics Team Day.
Wow. Please, would you all like to say a few words and tell us about it? At least introduce yourselves.
I'm Brandon King. I'm actually a mentor now. I graduated from the team in 2014, going to Georgia Southern University, but this has been a life-changing experience. It's been an honor to compete with them and now sort of teach them what I learned when I was a student. But yeah, this has been a fantastic year for the team.
Great.
Hi, I'm Sarth Patel. I'm going into my junior year, into my third year on the team, and thank you.
My name's Megan Throlson, and I just graduated from Columbus High School, and I did 4 years on the team.
Tyler Tomia, I'm junior. I do pneumatics on and air pressure related stuff on the robot.
Okay, great. Hi, Frank.
Hi, I'm Frank Brasky, and I'm just their chief cheerleader. These guys really are the stars, and most of the team couldn't be here. They're literally all over the planet. They're off teaching camps, doing robotics, teaching kids, doing what young people that are this smart should be doing. And I'd like to take a moment and just to give you some context of what it is that they did. So you may or may not be familiar with Minute Maid Park. It's where the Major League Baseball teams in Houston play. And if you could imagine a park full of people, there were roughly 36,000 folks there, or thereabouts, teams from all over the country. And not only were they the first team from Georgia to ever make it to this level of play, they went all the way. They were 2 wins away from the World Championship title.
Wow.
So this is... And I couldn't be prouder of them. And, you know, just from a real brief perspective, I want to say, number one, thank you for the proclamation. Thank you, Pops, for making sure we got it in there. We didn't get to have the parade yet, but we'll get there. Maybe that's when we get the World Championship. But in terms of economic development and leadership development, these kids really go through the crucible of the hardest possible thing you can do. If you can imagine back to January 7th of this year, they didn't even know what the game was going to be. And they went down to a place that had no heating and air, and I was literally freezing that day because we couldn't travel to Atlanta. And they sat in and watched a webcast where they got to learn how this program works and what this year's challenge was. And they spent that entire Saturday afternoon, when they could have been off on winter break still, and they started brainstorming and thinking about how were they going to play this game. And then over the next 6 weeks, they designed, constructed, built, tested, and debugged a fully operational, industrial-strength robot that played a game with 6 other robots. And they did it 3 robots at a time against 3 robots in alliances. And that's where this concept of cooperation comes in. One match, you might be on the blue team, and the next time you're on the red team. And so you're having to compete with and try to beat, and at the same time, strategically try to figure out how to make friends with and have relationships with people that may eventually be your allies, just like the real world. And so one of the things that we're looking at is, the alumni. Brandon is a great example, and I have a small token I want to present to him on behalf of all of the mentors, the parents, and the students. And this is just an example of one of the medals that they get. But Brandon didn't have to do this. He came back while he's actively in school, going to Georgia Southern, driving back on his own dime and helping out this team because he loves it and he knows the value of what they're doing. And so on behalf of all the mentors and the team, I want to just give you this small token of our appreciation. And Brandon is a great example. He actually grew up in this program. He started off in elementary school doing Lego League. So you guys have heard me come up here and talk about Lego Robotics, and you hear about the Lego Robotics program we do at CSU. So he grew up in that program, and he's a great example of everyone who goes through this program can turn pro. It doesn't matter if I break his fingers, bust his kneecaps, or whatever. He can still do this for the rest of his life. Right? So I challenge you to find any other program where 100% of the participants, we have participants in wheelchairs that don't have finger mobility, that can participate with their mouths or with their eyes. So this is something that everyone can go pro at. Two, you want real economic development and growth? How would you like to revitalize the Liberty District and put the first of its kind STEM gym in our region, where we could be doing this 100% of the year? Right now, we get shuffled from place to place, hoping we don't get kicked out, hoping we can maybe turn on the air or the heat and have a place to do it. For the last 10 years, we've been kind of like the ragtag bad news bears of robotics. And I'm kind of proud of that because the kids don't let that affect them, and they still persevere and excel. The alumni of this program go to little places like Google Labs, Intel R&D, Apple product development, SpaceX. They don't have, they're not missing the opportunity to go do excellent things. What we're missing as a community is we don't have a real reason for them to come back. And so do you want to fill up Benning Technology Park? You want City Village to be this vibrant tech community? Let's build an infrastructure where we support this sort of activity and actually go all the way throughout the school district. We have the support morally and from a political thought perspective, but we need the support financially and corporately. We have a wonderful group of sponsors, and you can see some of their logos on the back of our shirts. But we give a lot more philanthropically to things that nobody could ever go pro at. And so that's where we're trying to figure out how can we change that. You want to have high technology companies? I'm telling you, these kids are the future. They get scouted. They go to school wherever they want. They get to choose. Like my favorite conversation is, Mr. Brasky, should I go to MIT or to NC State? And my first question is, well, who's paying you the most? Right? And that's a very legitimate answer, a very legitimate question, because 10% of all the students that go to Massachusetts Institute of Technology from this region come from the Columbus Space Program. And by the way, that's not because of anything I do. I'm just a mouthpiece. I'm a cheerleader. Yes, I've been doing the Lego Robotics thing for the last 10 years, but my son's on the team. Mr. Richardson and the team that he has, the parents, like Mr. Throlson, wherever he went, Mr. Barton, those gentlemen, they give hours, hundreds of hours of time. They don't have to make sure these kids are learning the kinds of skills, learning how to weld, how to solder, how to debug, write software, and build pneumatics, which Tyler was talking about. A fully integrated pneumatic system that he doesn't have to wait to go to college. He could go work at Kia right now and show them how to do things. These kids, they're not just learning toys, they're learning real workforce development skills. And so I appreciate all that you guys have done, giving me the opportunity to thank them. Again, I want to thank publicly Mr. Richardson and all the parents in support of the team. And just, again, applaud you guys. They're amazing people, and they're very giving youth. And they're the reason I don't worry about getting old, because I know that we'll have people like them taking care of us, and our future is bright. They reaffirm that every year. Thank you very much.
Well, Frank, thank you very much, and you're so right. This is what economic development looks like today, and it's community development. So thank you so much. Come on around and let us congratulate you. We're so very proud of you. So proud of you. Really great. Good to see you here. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you. Frank, thank you so much for what you do. There it is for all of them. Okay. All right, we're going to hit the pause button for a moment here. We have published our taxpayer Bill of Rights. It has been published in the legal organ of this jurisdiction, the Ledger Inquirer, to begin at 6 p.m. And so we're going to go into that hearing now, and I'm going to turn it over to the city attorney, Clifton Fay.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a hearing that is required by OCGA Section 48-5-32.1. It's required every year that there is a tentative increase in the digest. It does not mean that your property taxes will increase if you benefit from the home residential homestead assessment freeze, but the wording the state requires to be in the advertisement has the words tax increase, and that throws people off every year, but it does not mean that you will have a tax increase if you are protected by the homestead assessment freeze. But we'll let Ms. Alexander tell us about the tentative increase in the digest, and anybody else that has a question can raise their hand or come forward.
All right, good evening. So as Mr. Fay mentioned, this is a required public hearing. It's required by state law. This is actually the second second hearing of the required 3 hearings. We'll have our next hearing next Tuesday, June 13th at our 9 a.m. Session. But as Mr. Fay mentioned, again, we are required to publish an ad in the paper when we are expecting to collect more in our for our 2017 tax digest than what we've collected based on our 2016 digest. And this is just the increase that we are publicizing is just due to the total growth of the tax digest, due to reassessments of commercial property. As Mr. Fay also mentioned, there are no tax rate increases for individual homeowners with homestead exemptions unless you've made alterations to your property. If you've made alterations or improvements to your property, then a reassessment by the Board of Tax Assessors is required by state law. We also are required to compute and publish in the ad the rate of what we would roll our millage rate back to in order to collect the same amount for 2017 that we collected in 2016 in regards to our tax revenue.
All right, any questions?
Any questions in the audience or around the table? Okay. Appreciate that, Ms. Alexander. Do you want to say anything, Mr. City Manager?
I will, Mr. City Attorney, and I will be redundant.
It's okay.
So that it's very clear, and I know that there's been some stories in the media, whether it be the written press or television media, that gives the impression that there is a property tax increase. And you have said, and our finance director has said, that it's what the law requires in the language. But we want to be very clear to the citizens of Columbus, Georgia, that there is no property tax increase. There is no property tax increase. There's an increase obviously in the digest because we've added on additional properties and which caused the increase. But the increase is not related to any increase to any individual unless they've made an addition to their property. In other words, you added 400 square feet to your house. Obviously, we've got to come out and assess that, and it's new, it's a new addition. So anything new would be assessed. But what you've had all along remains the same if you have residential property. That does not apply to commercial property. So there is no property tax increase. And I hate that I've got to read it in the paper again or see it on the television news again because it is very, very misleading. There is no property tax increase. And so I want it to be redundant because I want that message to be crystal clear to those here and those watching by television. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, that concludes this public hearing then under Title 48, and I think there'll be another one next week at 9 a.m.
All right, thank you. And thank you all for your patience. We just have to make sure all those boxes are checked, and we'll go back now to our resolution and proclamation session, and we will continue with the resolution commending and congratulating Columbus State University Lady Cougars for their outstanding achievements during the 2016-2017 season, and ask all of those from Columbus State University to please come forward as our Mayor Pro Tem reads a special proclamation. Good evening.
This is the first time I got to see Coach Howard in person. Whereas the Columbus State University women's basketball team recently finished an outstanding 2016-2017 season. And by the way, I'm a Columbus College graduate, and they didn't have a basketball team, otherwise I would have played. Whereas the Lady Cougars lost just one game during their regular season. Whereas the Lady Cougars won the Peach Belt Conference regular season and tournament championships. Whereas the Lady Cougars won the Southeast Regional title and earned a place in the NCAA Elite 8 tournament. Whereas head coach Anita Howard was recognized as the NCAA Division II Women's Basketball Coach of the Year by Sports Vision's PBC Coach of the Year and WAC Howard Georgia College Women's Coach of the Year. Whereas Alexis Carter, Alexis, are you here?
No, she's at home.
Okay. Whereas Alexis Carter, the only non-senior in the Lady Cougar starting lineup, led the team in points, rebounds, blocks, and steals, averaging 16.6 points and 10.5 rebounds, ranking among the top 10 single-season totals in program history, setting a single-season record for blocks with 105 against the Virginia Union during the Elite 8, was named to the Division II Conference Commissioners Association All-American Third Team, a first-team All-PBC and All Southeast Region selection, and named the PBC Co-Defensive Player of the Year. Whereas the achievements of the Columbus State University Lady Cougars basketball team are worthy of special recognition by this council. Now therefore, the Council of Columbus, Georgia hereby resolves, and when I call your name, if you're here, if you raise your hand, we hereby commend and congratulate the following members of the Columbus State University Lady Cougars for their outstanding achievements during the 2016-2017 season. Tatiana Wayne, Nashonda Malone, Gabby Williams, Aaron Morrow, Kira Gillespie, Alexis Carter, Brittany Tatum, Asia Vetter, Christian Carter, Ashley Asuzu, and I hope I don't mispronounce it, Tatiana Wilson, Ebony Williams, Jasmine Herndon, Ariel Johnson, Aaron Wilder, Kennedy Montgomery, Sabrina Cotton, and coaches Anita Howard, Dante Travis, Luell Detry, Andresa Brown, and Theo Howard. Let a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the team. And I move for its adoption.
All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
All right, it is approved. Congratulations. Yes, please, say a few words, tell us about your season, and we want you to introduce everyone that's with you.
All right, we don't have everyone with us. You know, it's the summer break, so, you know, some of the young ladies are enjoying home. We had 6 seniors, that 4 actually graduated, so they're around the world doing great things. But here with us, I'm going to kind of let them just introduce themselves real quick.
Hello, Coach Theo Howard. I wanted to thank the Columbus community for embracing us the way you have in our first year. It's been tremendous. And I also want to recognize the entire athletic department at Columbus State University, just to see the benchmark or the bench or the bar that has been raised in that department with all the skilled coaches, and knowing the fact that student development is at the core of all that they do. It's been a pleasure working with the program. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Coach Luell Detry, but I go by Lou. I'm a graduate assistant coach. I'm studying exercise science, actually getting my master's, and I'm also the academic coach and student life liaison.
Hello, I'm Jasmine Herndon, and I'm from Columbus, so it's even great to be here at home, and I just want to thank you guys.
What class are you in?
I'll be an upcoming sophomore.
This is one of our babies.
My name is Taxiana Wilson. I'll be going to my junior year in the fall. I was actually born here, and I want to thank all of the people in Columbus that came out to our games. Like, it played a big part in us winning a lot of games. We had a lot of support in the region championship. It was so many people. I've never seen many people in the gym, period. Yeah, and just challenge you guys if you have time next semester to come out to some games and see us play. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ebony Williams. I'm an upcoming sophomore, and I just want to say thank you for supporting us and recognizing us. And I just had a great privilege to play with great players and a great coaching staff, so thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dante Travis. I'm an assistant women's basketball coach. I kind of lead the guard workouts and skill development, also the recruiting coordinator at Columbus State, and just kind of ditto on what Coach Theo said. Just appreciate you guys' support in the community, and we're looking forward to doing it again next year. Thank you.
And like everyone hopefully noticed now, I am Anita Howard. I'm the head coach, and so we would like to see each and every one of the city council members present. I know Miss Judy Thomas almost had an accident listening to our Elite 8 game while she was in her car, so I appreciate that support from afar. But like Toxie did say, we appreciate the community overall, the campus community at Columbus State, our athletic director, Todd Reeser, who couldn't be here because he's at our Peach Belt meetings, but everyone came out and supported us, and so this was my first year at CSU in Columbus. I moved here from North Carolina, and so I'm just overwhelmed with all the support that we had, but it moves us even forward next year if you can have people in the stands cheering us on. And so if we can help you, we also do community service, so any events that you guys have, just ring my phone, send me an email. We'll have the whole team come out and engage with the community, because we do want Columbus State and the city of Columbus to be partners. Thank you.
Wow, that's great. Well, obviously, you make us so proud and show off Columbus so well, so thank you for all you do, and we appreciate your exceptionalism. So come around and let us shake your hand and provide you these proclamations. Hey, look forward to next year, huh? All right, great job. So proud of you. Yeah, thank you for all you do. Thank you, guys. Excellent job. Excellent job. Yeah. All right, thank you. Congratulations. There you go.
I'll call her too. I'll call you too.
All right, that concludes our That concludes our proclamation and resolution session. We're going to move into a regular business meeting that was approved, especially set by the Columbus Council. And first on the mayor's agenda, we have minutes from the May 23rd, 2017 meeting of the Columbus Council. We've got a motion and a second that they be received. Has anyone seen any typographical errors or other additions or adjustments that need to be made? Hearing none, all those in favor, please state aye. The minutes are received. And we will turn it over at this time to the city attorney, Clifton Fay. Hold on, for some reason we have some counselors. We have Councilor Woodson.
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to bring an item back that I mentioned in our last meeting on the 16th of May for the clerk of council reclassified from a G22M to a G23K for $4,473. And the other item was the reclass of the deputy clerk of council G14A to a G16A for $4,162. This is a total of $8,635. The reason I want to bring it back is that the clerk of council's office works for us, for the city council, and for everyone in the community. And it's been a long time since we have done anything to give them any increases or anything. They don't often ask for anything and are, sometimes I think are afraid to even ask us for things that they might need in the office. So I wanted to bring it back for reconsideration for a vote today.
Okay. Well, why don't we get everything in order first and have the city attorney call the issue?
Okay. We're going to
Well,
call.
I checked,
Yeah, hold on
before
just a
y'all do all that, I checked with our chairman, our budget chairman, and he told me as soon as that's coming up, bring it up. So that's
Yeah,
why I
but we
brought
don't,
it up.
but we
That's
didn't
fine.
even call it yet. So we're going to call it, and then we're just going to loop all that in. Go ahead, Clifton.
We'll call the ordinance. We got a lot on first reading, but this is the first one, the operating budget, tentative amount $268,022,048. It can be amended. It's on first reading. So we've got a motion on the table, and there may be discussion. Got a second? And there may be discussion on other possible amendments as well.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. We have Councilor Barnes with discussion.
No.
Okay, we have a point of order from the Mayor Pro Tem. Madam Clerk, Mayor Pro Tem believes this has been voted on previously and was approved. And so now Councilor Davis is saying he believed it was called up a second time.
No, I mentioned it that I will bring it up at this time.
Okay, it
We
seems
didn't take
that
a
neither the clerk nor the city attorney know of any approval, so it. It's not in the budget.
It was not approved.
Right, according to the budget chair, that must be,
That was Howard.
That was Howard.
that was Mr. Pendleton's.
Yeah, there was, I think the vote was inconclusive
Right.
with 5 in favor and I think 3 against.
Okay, all right, let's see, we've got Councilor Barnes.
No,
with
that
this-
was my second.
Okay. All right, we've got a motion and second to amend the ordinance. We've got Councilor Davis with this.
Just asking if are they together? Are you making a motion together or separate or what? Shouldn't they be separate, Mayor?
And it can be either way. I don't know that, do we have a budget set off or what, how's the funding? Is this just coming from reserve? Maybe council needs to know, Angelica, how much reserve this is and so forth.
Okay. It was listed on the add delete list initially as 2 separate items. Both items represent .01 fund balance days, so that would reduce our fund balance estimate from 60.71 days to 60.69 days if both were approved.
And I know, Angelica, one other question that I heard from somebody this week. We now have people who are listed at grade 24s making grade 26s because of amendments to salaries. And so will this take a grade and put them over other grades? Because we're going to, once this is all done, we're going to need to send something to the University of Georgia to get our pay plan redone in this regard, because we're not consistent with the pay plan, and that just invites complaints and trouble. And so we're going to need to send a referral to the University of Georgia related to at least those 24s that are now at a pay grade 26 without being at pay grade 26. So what does this do anything that council needs to be aware of? Does it move them to be equivalent to other pay grades?
It does not. And these two reclassifications have already been reviewed and approved by the University of Georgia.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We've got the city manager.
And Madam Mayor, just to be clear to your question, it will not in this case with these particular employees, but there are others that's in the budget and approved. They are pay grade 24s, and they are earning equal to a pay grade 25 and pay grade 26.
Okay.
And so, but
Well, let's just make that a referral to bring it back after the budget's done at the next full city council meeting, so we can get the ducks in order, so to speak, related to our pay plan, so we don't have inconsistencies with our pay plan. Okay. And we can bring it back and have maybe Retha make a presentation of some sort on what she recommends that we do related to that. Okay, any further discussion? All right, this is an oral motion, so we'll have to take an oral vote. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, Tiny, you take a count.
Those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. You need to count the
Those
opposed.
opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. All right, it's again inconclusive. All right. Yeah. Yes.
I make a motion that the adjustment on the clerks be presented as a vote. I make a motion that the line item on the clerk that was heard before that was inconclusive be voted on again.
Okay, which one's that now? The clerk or the deputy clerk? Or the,
Clerk.
just the clerk? Okay, so that's Counselor Davis making a motion
Voted on both.
to what?
It's basically separating them.
Okay, so he's making a motion, what is the, Mimi, you have to help me call it, because I don't have those numbers in front of me. What's the motion he's asking for?
He's requesting that the clerk be separated from the clerk of council, the deputy clerk of council. The amount for the clerk of council is $4,473. That represents .01 fund balance days. So it would take the reserve from 60.71 days to 60.70 days.
Okay, so motion and second. Any further discussion on that item related to the clerk? All right, hold on. Counselor Allen?
Give me the salary range she's in now and what that would move her to.
Currently, the clerk of council is a G22M, and that would take her to a G23K. So dollar-wise, hang on just a second.
$4,473.
It represents $4,473. That includes benefits.
And what's the total salary?
Total salary, so her new total salary would be $79,753.19. But that's not include, that's just a new total salary. The amount of the increase is $4,473, and that's including benefits.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All right, all those opposed? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those opposed? 3.
That passes. All right, anything else?
Okay, any other questions or
Well, we do-
potential amendments?
We have some members in the audience that would like to speak.
Okay. Got some other department heads that may want to speak. If they would,
Okay.
come on up.
It is on first read, so we'll invite any member of the public, department head, or citizen to come forward and speak.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Chester Randolph, and I'm a resident of Muskogee County at 7309 Westport Loop, Midland, Georgia. And I'm also the chair of the Tax Assessor Board. And I'm here today to ask council to reconsider giving Betty Middleton a raise to the others that was approved early in council. And from my understanding is that that recommendation for the other ones was based on longevity. And Betty has over 53 years of working in city government. That is a long time. She also has 10 of those years as a chief appraiser. She also has 4 managers, 24 employees, and managed a regular budget of over $1 million a year. Now, I don't know what's in the other departments, but I don't think that those departments are as big as her department in terms of employees and managers you have to manage. And also, she was just overseed a budget of over $5 million. We had new software put in, as well as we had a new revalue to our property values. $5 million she had responsibility for that she managed through that process, that she did a wonderful job on. And also, the base for about 35% of that $286 million I heard announced come from property tax, and done a good job on that. If you don't do a good job on managing your values on property tax, you don't have the kind of resources you need to have the funding that you have at that $286 million. And I think the way we have it set up right now, that's going to continue to get better. I did a little bit of what I call my personal fact check. And if the idea was based on longevity, Betty should be the first one you guys should approve. And that was your main consideration. She should have been the first one. I don't think there's any employee who's been with the city government for over 53 years. That's a long time. She loved this government. She loved Columbus, Georgia. She loved Muskogee County. I looked at and pulled some records up, and I see where the election director has 31 years of service. She's a grade 24. She makes $74,058 a year, and you guys just approved moving that position to $90,233. You have the WIOA director who has 24 years of service, a grade 24, who makes $79,753, and you moved that position, have approved that position for $90,233. Betty has 53 years again. She's a grade 25. She makes $83,790. So you, in fact, have taken a grade 24 and moved it above a grade 25. You overlooked an employee who's been with you over 53 years, almost a third to a half more than the other ones. Now, I don't know about what's fair and what's not fair, but that doesn't seem good to me. It doesn't seem fair. And I ask this council to go back and reconsider, because I'm not even sure how you made that decision. I'd like somebody to tell me, how did you do that? How do you overlook an employee like that who has that many years of service and have done a wonderful job? How did that happen? Can anyone tell me that? And the other piece is, we just came off one of the biggest lawsuits this city has ever had, okay? And I'm coming out of, my background is corporate America in North Carolina. And I'm telling you, I worked in the HR. This looks like, to me, a storm about to happen. You got a white female, you got a person that's over 60, and you got a conversation disparity there between what she's got. So I see a storm coming. And I just encourage and ask you guys and ladies to reconsider Betty Middleton and giving her the raise to the rest of the folks in the director levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion related to that, or how does council want to handle that request? Councilor Davis.
Well, Madam Mayor, I just checked with one of the deputy city managers, and I thought for sure that that had already been approved, but I was told that it's inconclusive. I thought for sure. And for some of the reasons that the gentleman mentioned right there, that was the purpose in bringing them up in the first place. So let me make that clear. But I'll be glad to make that motion again if it was an inconclusive vote.
Okay. Any further discussion related to that? I will say, and I don't know if our finance director wants to speak to it, but I believe we have 3 grade 24s, is that correct? And 2 of them were raised to 26s without changing their pay grade, but they were raised to that level, and then 1 was not, and the reasons articulated for it, and we had stressed that we needed to have some sort of system or process, was longevity and hard work. And so we're going to have some sort of articulation about distinguishing at some point. So, Councilor, Mayor Pro Tem.
And I would also say that the WOIA's raise did not come out of general fund balance, it's from the grant money. And one of the questions that got asked of us from the budget chair was, we voted raise in, where's the money coming from? And how much, on hers, how much is it? How many days is it from the fund balance? Because I know that's where it's coming from, fund balance.
The dollar value is $7,499. That's including benefits. The impact to the fund balance reserve is 0.02 days.
Okay.
And so where will we be if this is approved?
We'll be at 60.68 days because of what we just approved for the clerk of council.
Okay.
We'll be at where?
60.68 days.
If that gets approved.
That's correct. If we approve Betty's, if you all approve Betty's, not we.
60.68 days?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a Councilor Davis? Did you say a question?
I thought, Madam Mayor, a lot of this was clarified in the conversation when it was brought up. I think there was a discussed salary amount that went along with all 3 of the subject candidates.
Can you help us there?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
He's saying that
What
there
is the
was
salary?
there,
What is the
when it was
salary amount?
initially proposed, he believes he recalls a particular salary being proposed.
The $90,233 was the amount. It was that new minimum for department directors.
I don't know of a new minimum that we have for department directors. I know what the pattern has been.
Right, based on the pattern for the salaries of the newer department directors, that was the amount that you requested these individuals be moved to.
Okay, let's see, and we've got the city manager.
Well, I think the finance director said it. The more recent department heads were brought to council and confirmed at $88,000, $88,400. And then based on the last salary adjustment, I believe we had of 2%, was it?
The COLA.
It was, of course, that the scale was moved for every employee in the government, and that put those who came in at 88.4 at 90,233. And so when these were brought up, of course, they were not in the mayor's budget, but they were brought up at budget meetings at the last meeting, I believe. And they were to, only one got approved initially, and that person was to be moved to the 88.4, which had moved to 90,233. That person was approved. Just to refresh your memory, it was at the very end of that meeting because the others all were voted down, or it was inconclusive, I should say. You had John Redmond, you had Howard Pendleton, you had Betty Middleton, you had Tanya Washington, and they were all inconclusive. Only one got approved, and that was the election director, Nancy Boring. Councilor Barnes came in at the end of the meeting, and the vote for Howard Pendleton was reconsidered. And that is when he was able to get 6 votes. And so Howard Pendleton and Betty Middleton came forward in this first reading at 90,233. All others were voted down, or inconclusive, I should say. Yes, that's right. Only 2 were approved. All others were inconclusive.
But one of the things you said, that we brought this up at the end of the budget session, this was brought up before, but it was just put on the add and delete list.
It was brought up and put on the add delete list at the meeting prior to voting on the add delete list. It was the last actual review. And we were only going to bring back to you at the next meeting the add delete list. At the very end of that meeting, it was put on, those were put on the add delete list, and came back at the very next meeting when you only voted on add deletes.
But this has been an ongoing discussion for quite some time.
Well, you're absolutely right. I remember very clearly it has been going on for a long time. In fact, around October, November timeframe, there was much discussion on it, and it all went away, and then it recently came back.
Okay. Councilor Barnes.
Well, yeah, you're right. Mr. Steeman, I missed that, Betty Middleton's vote. I came at the end when I caught the Howard Pendleton's. But yeah, I will second your motion.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion related to this item? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote since it's an oral motion for amendment. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? 3.
All right. Inconclusive. She stepped out.
You got my vote as a yay, right? Just want to be sure.
Go find Councilor Woodson. Hold on a second. Councilor Woodson, would you like to record a vote in the matter of a raise for the, for Betty Middleton of the Tax Assessor's Office? A yes vote is in favor of the raise and no vote is against it. It's, I believe, 5 to 3.
I'm going to go ahead and vote based on the information that was provided, but I have a little concern that we did not support our clerk, our deputy city clerk. and her dollar amount was only for $4,162. But I'll vote in favor of Ms. Betty. But I want it known on the record that I'm disappointed that we couldn't vote for $4,162 for our clerk of council, but we're doing it for every department.
Not every department, but,
Just about.
no, only
Okay,
3 out of
Mayor.
18.
Okay, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Okay, is that all you need, Tony? Has that got it?
So that's approved.
It does
So-
pass.
All right, so we're currently at 60.68 days, and I believe we have others that like to speak. The marshal is here.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, City Attorney. I will be brief. I wanted to come and address an issue that was taken at a recent council meeting. First of all, I want to thank you for voting for the pursuit vehicle for the Marshal's office. The vehicle is much needed. As you know, that we have 8 vehicles that meet the city standards. And what I wanted to do is ask the council to reconsider. I believe that on the vote is specifically for us to have one pursuit vehicle, which is over $52,000 total. We have 8 vehicles that we need. What I'm asking the council to reconsider is if you would allow me to use the $52,000 to purchase 2 pursuit vehicles without the technology package, but just purchase 2 pursuit vehicles. I don't want to create something that's not going to work later on, but what we are willing to do is to take the technology from the older vehicles and to try to put it into the newer vehicles. With us doing that, that will knock our need down from 8 to 6 instead of it being 7. So I just wanted to come before the council to ask you to ask for your reconsideration on that.
All right, we've got Counselor Garrett.
I'd just like to say that, I understand there have been concerns in the past, and I respect the marshal. He came to us, he didn't try and finagle the system and get the money after the budget process and shifted around with us, knowing it. He talked to me about it, explained what he could do. He did say that since they do have those vehicles that don't work, they've got parts of the pursuit package. Another concern, I've heard from folks in the community is that they didn't think we should have given him pursuit vehicles with a package. So we're letting him make the most of the same amount of money, and if he can get the pursuit stuff on there, that's wonderful. But they can still accomplish their basic mission with these 2 vehicles, and he's come to us, he's been honest with us, and he told us up front, which I think we need to take into consideration. So I'll make the motion to allow the marshal to do the 2 pursuit vehicles.
Okay, motion is second. We have discussion from Counselor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. City Manager, one of the meetings, you had a presentation from your staff that listed the number of vehicles by department, and I think there were 7, if I recall. There were 7 more vehicles in the possession of the Marshal's Department than number of employees he had. And I asked you to look into that, and I was just wondering if you had a report regarding that situation.
Yeah, we did have that answer.
Yeah.
But you just pull up that slide.
And I'd have to have Deputy City Manager speak to that, Lisa Goodwin speak to it, but what I recall is that there were 24 vehicles and 17 sworn officers. And of course, I don't know, I know that one vehicle was a van, or I don't recall. I don't know if you have that report available.
Well, I guess rather than get into the weeds on that, if we could, if I understood his request, he wants to buy 2 cars that do not have a package, and then take the packages from the extra vehicles he has to build those up. Is that?
That's what I just heard him say, yeah, yes.
Okay. Yes, sir. And so if he buys the vehicles and tries to build the packages and he cannot, what happens at that point?
He would have 2 vehicles that would not have the complete build-out package. It could be that it has lights but not have the other technology, or have the technology and not have lights. I don't know. He would have to decide at that point.
Okay, so I guess to clarify, if they're not able to make them a full package added to those 2 vehicles, then council is to expect, you're not going to come back and ask us for the money to make them whole?
No, sir.
Add the
No, sir.
package?
No, sir.
Okay. All right.
And if I can add to Councilor Allen, that we did look at our list, and we compared it with the fleet management, and we have 22 vehicles. Some of those vehicles are going to have to be turned back in because those vehicles still exceed the city standards. So some of those are going to have to be turned back in anyway. And I think that one of those vehicles too was also listed as being a G Marshall van, also being a riding lawnmower also. So that made 22 vehicles.
Is the riding lawnmower okay?
Yes, sir, it's fine. If I can add a pursuit package to it, it'll be better.
I expected that request. I guess it's still locked in the...
Sir?
Is it still locked up in the
It is.
building out there?
At the range, yes, sir.
With the burglar alarm around it and everything? Everything's okay?
We don't have a burglar alarm.
You don't have a
on it.
security system there?
We do have cameras for it. We've had people to actually break into the range, and having a range is a huge liability for the city. We've invested $150,000 in a target system, and I would hate for someone to have their children there. We've actually put up poles and fence there. They've run them over, mowed them down. So we've taken every measure that we could to make it safe.
Well, I'm just glad the lawnmower's okay.
Yes, sir. It's fine. Thank you. We have 7 acres of, grass that we have to cut.
Understood.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, we got a few more. We got Counselor Davis.
Good evening, Marshall. So what I understand, I think when we were at the table, there were 2 line items. I think there was there was 2 pursuit cars with packages, and then it came down to 1. And then I think there was 2 requested vehicles that were on a line item as well. What I hear you saying is that what you'd like to do is just flip it, and you'd like those 2 that we were trying to make a decision on.
Right.
That day, I think everybody agreed around the table, what we were hearing was that the pursuit with the package was the one requested. So if you want to change that, I don't have a problem going back to those other 2. I think it was.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, and I supported it before, and I'll support your request here.
Thank you.
And I think some of the council members might have talked about just the moving and all. I think that we had talked, being that where we're at in budgeting and collections of revenue and all, that there would be a tidying accounting system to identify the purchases and to follow through with purchases, et cetera, and so forth. So that's good for everybody. It makes me feel comfortable. I know that makes you guys feel comfortable. So I can honor you or support your request.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, we've got Counselor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. And that's the way I remembered it, is that around the table, I don't think I voted in favor of it, but that was just to remain consistent with not reducing the fund balance. But at the time, I think there was a debate on whether or not we were trying to read your mind from afar, trying to see if you'd rather have the 2 admin vehicles or the 1 pursuit vehicle. And I think it was even said around the table that should you elect to have the admin vehicles or without the packages, that we were comfortable doing that at first reading. So I didn't vote for the original appropriation, but since it's been made and now we're just talking about how to spend it, I certainly want to give you oversight of how you spend that money. So I'll support that.
Thank you.
All right, we've got Counselor Thomas.
Good evening, Marshall.
Good evening.
I think that one of the things we need to be careful of is our terminology. And one of the things that when Deputy City Manager Goodwin made her presentation, I said to her, we have a standard before which we don't consider whether or not to replace cars. And that standard is number of years and mileage. And we have hundreds of cars in our fleet that meet that. So when you say you have 8 cars that meet the standard, they all meet the 7 years and 100,000 miles or more in each case, as I understand it. Is that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? And some of those cars are still functioning, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so as I understand what you want to do is to take some of those cars that may not, that are the worst functioning, I don't know what the proper terminology is, and to take the pursuit package off of those and put it on 2 new cars. Is that what I understand that you want to do?
Absolutely.
Well, and I think Councilor Henderson was right. We said, this is the amount of money that we can give to the department for vehicles. And if you want to do 1 pursuit vehicle, or if you want to do 2 admin cars, or if you want to do 2 pursuit vehicles without the package, 1 of each, however you want to do it, that's your call because you're the one that deals with this. You're the one that knows this. I can tell you, I cannot tell you which way you ought to go with it because I don't run the marshal's office. And I don't have to deal with the kinds of things that you deal with. But I think that was one of the things that we said was we've given an amount of money, and however you want to spin that out in whatever configuration you want to do that, I don't have a problem with that at all. But I do think, and I'm not saying this just for your benefit, but for everybody's benefit, when we say that these cars are ready to be replaced, that does not necessarily mean they are in a shape that they must be replaced. It only means they meet that standard. So instead of saying they're ready to be replaced, let's say they meet the minimum standard or something else. So I will support this request for you to make this decision. This is your decision, and I trust you to make the best one. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see, we have the Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to say, during the budget session, I made the motion to give you 2 admin cards. But Councilor Garrett came back and asked us to do the pursuit vehicle. And that's fine to take them and change out the parts. I don't think anybody has any problems with that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes discussion. We have a motion and second. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, and it carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
So I just want to
Let's see
clarify
the Mayor Pro
what
Tem.
was
One
specifically.
thing I think we need to ask the administration to look at is to look at our standard. Because the standard is not what we really need to look at based on what the gentleman that was here from the maintenance shop said. Even though we have cars with more than 100,000 miles, we got some cars that's still working right.
Well, and we will, and I think we committed at that time that we would take a look at the standard. And so we'll certainly do that.
Thank you.
I think the finance director wanted to make sure that she's clear on what was just done. So-
Right, I just want to make sure I'm clear on what was just approved. So because capital outlay, as far as the budget is concerned, is specific. And as I mentioned to Councilor Davis before, we, in the purchasing department, keep track of all of the capital outlay items that were approved by council to make sure that departments are buying what was approved. And if they're trying to buy something else, they have to come back to council. So we approved 2 pursuit vehicles for the marshals?
No.
2 pursuit vehicles with no packages.
With no packages, I got it.
So that means no radios, no technology, lights, or
License
anything.
readers.
It's just the two vehicles. And, well, it will, there will be maybe $1,000 or two savings in doing so. That will be, goes back into the general fund. Yes. I mean, OLOS. Goes back into OLOS. Is that right?
That's correct.
Finance, right?
Yes, sir.
What's the difference between a pursuit vehicle without a package and an admin vehicle cost?
The cost of an admin vehicle, well, a pursuit vehicle without a package is $25,545. The package itself is $27,649.
Admin vehicle.
An admin vehicle, the cost of, what we receive from our fleet manager as far as an admin vehicle, there are two. One mid-size, which is a Ford Fusion, which is $17,665, and there's a full-size Impala, which is $21,227.
All right, that was a whole lot of, the only question is, what's the full-size administrative vehicle versus the pursuit vehicle with no package?
Okay, full-size administrative vehicle for an Impala is $21,227.
And a pursuit vehicle with no package is what?
$25,545.
So roughly $4,000 difference. Okay, now the question is, was the original admin, what was the original cost of the two admin vehicles that were requested on the add delete list?
Because they were designated as admin vehicles, the amount on the add delete list would have been the $21,227 times 2.
So 40,
No.
what? 40?
No, what we need to be clear
So it was
on
42,
is what is the dollar amount that was going towards what the marshal was trying to do that we just changed? In other words, was it 53,000 and some change that now will be 50,000 or 51,000, 52,000?
all right, so the original amount allocated to the marshal for the pursuit vehicle with the build-out was $53,194. For the two pursuit vehicles with no build-out, that amount would be $51,090.
So there's a slight savings.
Okay. All right, everybody good to go on that? Okay, anyone else would like to speak for public agenda, or excuse me, not public agenda, for first reading on this item? Okay, where are we on days then?
All right, hang on just a second.
Go up a little bit.
I'm gonna have to go to the restroom in a minute. Okay.
So that, excuse me, that adds back .01 days. So now we're at 60.69 days.
Okay. All right, anything else on item 1 of the city manager's, or city attorney's agenda? Mr. Fay, anything else?
We'll have to get the new total into the ordinance on second reading next week, but I assume it'll be slightly higher than the $268 million that we announced. With that, we'll move on to the next item. Got a public hearing on the non-operating budgets for FY18. These are various funds such as the Urban Development Action Grant, Economic Development Program, Home Program, et cetera. Are there any questions on this ordinance? Anybody in the audience? No questions around the table, Mayor Pro Tem.
I see no questions.
Okay, we'll bring it back next week. It'll be on second reading for a vote. Item 3, this is the low-income household offset pursuant to federal guidelines. It's done every year for the solid waste ordinance. But so I understand that the garbage fee is not changing, is that right, Ms. City Manager over there? All right. We'll bring that back for a vote next week. Item 4 is the ordinance confirming a health and wellness center cancellation and no-show policy. Is Ms. Hollowell here? Any questions on that? Ms. Hollowell is here.
I see no questions.
Okay. Didn't know if you wanted to explain. Is there a charge if it's a no-show cancellation?
Yes, the no-show cancellation policy for the Health and Wellness Center is similar to a no-show cancellation policy that any patient might experience at his or her primary care physician. Basically, it encourages the patients to attend their appointments, and if they are not going to attend their appointments, to call in a timely manner and cancel the appointments. Yes, the policy further states that for the first no-show, no-call, there is not a cost. However, if there are subsequent no-shows and no cancellations, there is a $25 charge to the patient.
Okay.
And that's typical of your doctor's office. When you go and you miss an appointment or you miss several appointments, there is typically a fee similar to $25, or some will charge $50 or more.
All right. Any questions around the table?
I see no questions.
Okay, we'll bring that back for a vote next week. Then Mayor Pro Tem, thank you, Retha. I'm going to call the next 4 ordinances together.
Okay,
These
before
are.
you do that, Councilor Woodson would like to register her vote on the marshal.
Oh, okay.
Cars.
In favor.
No. Yeah.
Did you? I missed it.
Okay, one additional vote on the vehicle. All right, the next 4 items, Mayor Pro Tem, have to do with the contributions to the Columbus, Georgia General Government Employees Pension Plan, Public Safety Pension Plan, Major Disability Income Plan, and Death Benefit Escrow Plan. These are all called every year like this for contributions to fund each plan. Any
I see
questions?
no questions around the table.
Okay. We'll bring those all back for a vote next week. Item 9 is an ordinance that would amend Article 4 of Chapter 19 of the Columbus Code, Taxation and Licensing, to put in a structure, changing the fee structure for non-prorated, non-refundable administrative fees. Budget Review Committee is a sponsor. Any questions about that?
I see no
Yeah.
questions around the table.
All right, we'll bring it back for a vote. That fee is $75, just for those watching and listening. Item 10 is a resolution. This would reaffirm the continuation of the $1.50 911 charge and $1 charge for enhanced wireless, 75 cents for 911 per retail transaction prepaid wireless. Any questions on item 10? All right, it is ready for action.
It has been properly moved in second. Any other questions? And I suppose, I don't know how to work this system up here, so we're gonna take a voice vote. All those in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposes? It passes.
Everybody in favor? I think that was unanimous then.
It was.
And that's all we have listed at this time, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay.
It was 7. But we had one out of the room.
Councilman Davis, did you want to vote on the resolution for the
911 fees,
the continuation
Counselor?
of it?
Do you want to vote in the affirmative on the 911 fee resolution? All right, that'll make it unanimous, Ms. Clerk, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Next, we have to call up the public agenda. You finished, right?
It's time.
Okay, first on the public agenda, we have Mr. Antonio Carter, the National Block Party.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Thank you all so much for allowing me.
If you would state your name and address.
Antonio Carter, and what else did you ask for?
Address.
8103 Santee Court, Columbus, Georgia, 31909. Thank you all so much for having me on this afternoon. It is not with pleasure that I come to speak to you this afternoon, because I wish I was home doing something totally different. But what I'm here to speak to you about on this afternoon, I just could not allow it to pass. Madam Mayor, I almost did not show up when I read your statements in the Columbus Ledger today, and when I read them online yesterday. It was your statements and your sentiments that caused me to feel like the parents of the young man that I'm standing here to talk to you about at this moment, if you notice, they are not here with me either. Because once they read your statements, for all intents and purposes, you call them and their child liars. You never called the family. You never called them. You never spoke to them. You never went and talked to the young man. So how you could have such statements, or how you could give such statements to the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer, I'll never know. You never spoke to the family. So you got one side of the story. However, I don't have them with me, but I want to try to give you the heart and the minds of Corey Jones's family, who is the 12-year-old young man that was forced into the back of a Columbus police cruiser approximately 10 days ago. How much time do I have?
You have a total of 10 minutes.
Total
Two
of 10
5-minute
minutes.
segments.
Thank you so very much. Corey Jones was walking home from school. He had gotten off the school bus, and you mentioned in the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer that he was near a busy intersection, where perhaps maybe you or I need to contact the Muskogee County School District, because that busy intersection that you talk about is where his school bus lets him off, and that's where they pick him up from. However, Corey was walking in the neighborhood where he lives. He was stopped by a Columbus police officer, and he was asked a question, which was, "Where are you going?" Now, Corey had not been reported missing. Corey knew exactly where he was going. In fact, from the words, or from his own mouth, he says when the police officer stopped him, and if you all would like to hear Corey speaking his own words, I posted a video to Facebook, over 6,000 views at this point. Corey says he told the police officer, "I'm walking to my friend's house." The police officer asked him, "Corey, well, where do you live?" Corey says he pointed and he showed him. "I live back down the street on Reach Road." Now, Corey's grandmother lives across Macon Road, actually about maybe 50 yards from where the police officer encountered Corey. His grandmother stays 3 houses down the road. His father stays across Macon Road and 5 houses down the road. Now, the first question becomes, Corey hadn't been reported missing. He had just gotten off his school bus, 4:30 in the afternoon. I wonder why Officer Lee stopped Corey to start with. What was it about Corey that he saw that caused him to stop anyway? Why did you stop the young man? And when you stopped him, why was your first question, "Where are you going?" Corey really doesn't owe him any explanation. He's in his own neighborhood, where he lives. He has a right to walk those streets. But if that wasn't enough, let's just say the police officer actually thought Corey might be in danger, so he stopped him. I'll go with you on that one. But once you stop him and he tells you who he is and where he lives, that wasn't good enough for you. You forced Corey to get in the back of your police cruiser. And you didn't ask Corey to just get in the back of your police cruiser. The 12-year-old child says, he forced me, with a loud, mad, commanding voice. This is a 12-year-old talking with a mad, commanding voice. So after Corey gets in the back of the police car, the officer realizes that somebody is paying attention to what he's doing. One of the neighbors asked the police officer, "What's the problem?" So it's at this time that the police officer decides to ask Corey, "Can I have a phone number for your parents?" Mayor, you stated.
That's your 5-minute warning.
Can I have another 5 minutes, please?
Yes, everyone.
You
gets 2
stated,
minutes.
you said in the newspaper that the officer placed a phone call to his superior. That's a lie, and if the lie was told, the officer from the Columbus Police Department told it. Because when I contacted her later that night, because the parents had been calling the police department for hours, attempting to get them to send someone back out to the house, once I told them, you all need to make an official complaint against the officer. So not only did they call, I called for 4 days in a row. Lieutenant Dow finally called me back, and he told me that he was sorry. He understood why I was upset. But the officer that was responsible for the incident that very day turned in all of his equipment and he resigned, effective the 24th of last month. He was going to California to go to law school or something of that sort. Now, I don't have time to continue to break this down for you, but the fact of the matter is simply this. He traumatized Corey. He traumatized him. I understand that most of you all will never know what it's like to be a black man living in America. You will never understand what we mean when we tell you what the black experience is like, because you will never have this skin. But it's situations like Corey where you take young black boys off the street and you force them into police cars at 12 years old. Now, 10 years from now, when Corey's a 21 or a 22-year-old young man, and your officers pull up behind him and he has not done anything to anybody, and since he's traumatized now, he decides to run. Who knows what that situation turns out like? Because we still don't know what it may have turned out like if Corey decided to take flight the day Officer Lee stopped him for nothing. I have the voicemail message if you all would like to hear why the police officer says he stopped Corey. He says he found him walking down Reese Road. What is Corey, a puppy or something? He found him. Corey wasn't lost. He never told the officer, "I'm lost, I don't know my way." How do you find a young man that just got off the school bus? Now, all of you all sitting here who are counselors are elected. I want you all to listen while I say this, and I'm so glad the police chief is here. You have problems in Columbus, Georgia. You have situations and issues with the Columbus Police Department. Let's count them. In less than 1 year, you have the possibility of 4 to 5 civil lawsuits on your hand right now. Now, I know you can't sue the city. It's a consolidated government and all this mumbo jumbo. But I want you to think about it, starting with Coach Pollard back down here. Columbus police officers chasing somebody. He ends up dead. The young man, Redwine, I believe it was, who had the 3 individuals in the car being chased by the Columbus Police Department over in the Phoenix City. He unloads one clip, puts another one in, and empties that one into the car also. And then he resigns a couple of weeks ago. That's 2. Number 3, you have the incident where the Columbus police officer is chasing the individual and he runs over the murder suspect and kills him. That's 3. Number 4, just this weekend, you have another one with Mr. McLemore. 4 in less than 1 year's time, ladies and gentlemen. That's 4 cases in less than a year. It says slow. In less than 1 year, you have a police department that could potentially have 4 little civil lawsuits on its hand. And God forbid if Corey's family decides to try to sue for whatever reason, I'm not sure. That's 5. On your watch, you have a police department that is out of control. Period. Out of control. And the only way to fix the problem you have right now is training and a culture change. I don't know if Mr. Boren is capable of changing the culture of the Columbus Police Department. He's been a part of it for too long. I'm going to say it again before I sit down. You have the possibility in less than 365 days, this city is facing potentially 5 civil lawsuits based on the interaction of the Columbus Police Department. Thank you so much for having me. I hope if it's truly your will, Mayor, you said earlier that you hope God open our ears, our hearts, and our eyes.
Yes, sir.
I hope you can see now 5 potential lawsuits. 5. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. All right, Chief Boren, would you like to come forward, please, and elucidate us as to the circumstance? And if you'd like to, no, sir, your comments are finished. You may certainly stay if you'd like. And if there's anyone else you'd like to bring with you, have them come forward too, please. Okay. Yeah, just come on up so we can hear you.
I have Sergeant Murphy here who worked this original complaint. Officer Lee worked for her.
Pull that microphone down toward you so we can hear you. There you go.
And she actually talked to the family. She talked to the officer. I don't think you were led correctly when you were talking about the officer came in that one day and resigned just unexpectedly. He turned in his paperwork with us on the 11th of May, and he had given us a date of the 24th of May as resigning from the department to go to law school in California, and I have that paperwork. Now, a report or a complaint has been filed with us, and we're in the process of working that complaint now. I have some statements with me tonight, but it's not a finished product at this time. It's not a finished complaint. Apparently, Officer Lee did see the 12-year-old. The 12-year-old, in his opinion, as he told us, looked much younger than that. He used the age of 8. Saw the child on the side of the road and stopped, talked to the child, and had intended to take the child home or get him off the side of the road. He attempted to call the family. It's my information, reported to me. He attempted to call the family and left a message on an answering machine telling the family where the child was. It's our SOP that if you place an individual in your vehicle, then you notify your sergeant as to what you're doing. Sergeant Murphy's here tonight. She did receive a call from the officer. He did explain to her what he was in the process of doing and his concern for the child that he found on the side of the road and was going to attempt to take that child home. After a short conversation with the sergeant advised him to put the child back out of the vehicle and let the child continue on home, which is what apparently took place. At some point in time later, the family called and Sergeant Murphy actually went to the house and talked to the family. She apparently knew the dad and talked to the dad, and after explaining everything to the dad, he was satisfied with the actions of the officer. There was not a complaint done at that time because he said he was satisfied with what had taken place. It was not until after Antonio Carter talked to the family that a complaint was actually filed, and that doesn't really matter that much. We'll be glad to investigate it. Sergeant Murphy again had conversations, along with Lieutenant Dow, had conversations with the family. And, you know, I have seen this interview on the side of the road with Antonio Carter and the 12-year-old, to where it appears to me that if he was traumatized, it was done during that interview by Antonio Carter. Antonio Carter asked questions, and he also basically told the 12-year-old how to answer those questions. At some point in time, the 12-year-old was asked by the father in the presence of the officers, and Sergeant Murphy could probably answer that better than I can at this time, about the demeanor of the officer. Was the officer rude or helpful? And the child said, well, he was rude, and then he was helpful. So I think, and we're going to continue to look at this, and we will come up with a disposition. The officer did leave, but he had given us notice way before this incident took place that he was in fact going to resign and going to California. And we will continue to investigate this incident. And if there's anything that we have done wrong, we will say that we've done something wrong. If not, I intend to stand by the officer and his disposition and the disposition of the sergeant. And Mayor, that's about all I can add at this time.
That's fine. I just, you know, I said it wasn't quoted in the paper. I had not seen the article with any quotes from me, but I did look it up, and one was left out, and that was, it's a shame that an officer who stops a young person who he thinks is in an odd place is then berated for attempting to make sure the child is safe. And there is a call to the mother saying, just wanted you to know your son is at such and such intersection. You know, call me back at this number. And then the child was asked whether he wanted to go home, and he wanted to walk. And once it was confirmed that he was 12 years old, they felt he was mature enough certainly to walk home. But even in the video with Mr. Carter, the child is quite small for his age, and his father's acknowledged that in the statements. So he does look to be, you know, who knows, the guess of an age is a subjective judgment, but certainly he looks to be 9. And I hope officers are always keeping an eye out for people they see that might need their assistance. That's part of their job. So continue to investigate. If there was anything out of order that's not consistent with our operating procedures, then I know you'll take whatever action you need to take. But it's just unfortunate. You know, today we had a moment where we thought a child had been abducted. It turned out that it was an error. Thankfully, no child had been abducted. But this article was in the paper, and I had a citizen say to me, when that alert came out that a child may have been abducted, said, I wish a police officer would have been there and would have asked if they needed any assistance. And so we'll just work through this and see. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Mr. Gibbs, who would like to speak to us about inmate issues and dismissal of employment and policies of unintended inmates. Mr. Gibbs, good evening. And you will also, if you'll state your name and address for the record, and you'll also have a total of 10 minutes.
Thank you. My name is David Gibbs. I live at 4022 Woodford Drive. I've been in Columbus since I was 69, and I just turned 53. I just wanted to ask a question. Has anybody ever been to Heath Park? Ever been to Heath Park when the trash truck gets out, he's got to go to the bathroom, and you're there, and you're a correction officer, and you tell him, hey, I'll watch your guys. You can go ahead and go to the bathroom. We look out for each other. He says, man, you guys got a gun. I don't have one. I don't need a gun. I said, officer presence means a lot. They listen to me. They follow my orders. They follow my leads. He comes back, gets in the truck, and we talk about unattended inmates. Now, when they go around the city and they're in the trash truck, they either go to Northside, Rigdon, Salmon Road, or to my famous Northside that I had to go to the day the drugs were found. But I hadn't been there yet. But my supervisor had told me that they had found drugs out there. And I said, they know about it. Let's go out there after it's over and make them look like we know what we're doing. Now, this attended inmate thing is pretty important, especially for the public, whether they're inside here or they're outside. Never gave an inmate anything, never got caught with a cell phone, never got caught with anything, ever. I've been written up in my own division only for being sick from high blood pressure that I just got when I turned 50, and minor accidents. I was terminated last year, January, for leaving inmates unattended at Fox Elementary, an abandoned loading dock, because I had to go to the bathroom, and I was inside with my inmates. There were 3 sitting on the loading dock. There was nobody around. It was lunchtime. Now, I do understand it's unattended inmates, but if we're standing there and that young man is on that side and there's somebody on that side of the wall, and my inmates have known me for the last 5 years, and they know me well enough to know, don't play with me. I'm not military. I don't have any money coming in. This is my job. That day, I had found 6 bugle bags because I went out there and I go to all my parks. I tell them. Every park, if I had to go to it, I go ahead of time. Sometimes if I want to go to the movies at the Ritz, I'll go by it just to see if they've left anything in the grass. I had never had anything gone. I'd never been written up by the prison. The prison had come to my site 6 to 8 times my first 2 years. I was dismissed last year for leaving inmates unattended. I had to pay $1,700 for an attorney to represent me at my personal review board hearing, which really didn't matter because the 3 people or 4 people on the board were not even legal. My attorney was so devastated, he couldn't believe it. I had been here 18 years. I'd never been late. I always dressed the occasion. I always did my job the best I could, and I was even feared by some of the people around me because I used to say, hey, we need to do things a little bit better. The same day as I got fired, 1 already transferred to the sheriff department. 1 quit and went to public services. 2 more have retired. If somebody can get fired for one thing, even though he was suspended, what does that say? My attorney sat here and talked to Mr. Hart, who was supposed to be like a personal review board. And he tried to reason with the man because realistically he was saying, look, this guy's been here 18 years. You have nothing in his file. They tried to bring up something from 9 years ago when I was working in therapeutics. A person with a mental illness who had been on medication walked off. I tried to run the guy down, but what was I going to do? He took off running. That's all they had in my file. I'm here today because I'm finally able to come out. I've gained 35 pounds. My dad's been in the hospital, my mother's been in the hospital, and my brother just had a brain hemorrhage last year, so I've been helping them out. I'm more than less, not embarrassed to go try to find a job, but how are they going to tell me that I worked a job and they know me and I live here? Now, some people in my neighborhood have said, hey, you need to go ask for your job back. They said they might give it back to you. I do want my job back. I deserved it. I'm not trying to be mean, but I was serious about doing my job. If, I don't want to name any names, if this director who got the phone call to say that I was at a site had understood the situation, there was nobody there. Okay, they're unattended. They could be left unattended when I saw them in the government center the other day walking around. I had a guy speak to me, and I looked at him and I had to tell him, hey man, you're not allowed to talk to me. That's 5 minutes, I know less. Yeah. Same thing in this building. I know when we're out in outside detail. I've been in Martin Luther King. I've been in Bibb City. My inmates do not leave my site. I've even called the cops when somebody left marijuana at Fox. I don't want no praise from it. I did not deserve to be fired. If I think anything, anyone in my division knew, okay, suspend me. But come up with a better reason for unattended. Maybe somebody called it in. I even saw the guy who got put down by the prison in Cooper Creek Cove with inmates. I said, what are you doing in here? I just got fired for unattended for 10 minutes. 10 minutes because I was walking outside to my inmates, and 1 was in the bathroom, so it was actually 3. And they were sitting on the loading dock. I asked Dr. Worthley, were they doing anything? Their parents hanging out. Why? They know me. The truck was locked. They wanted to sit outside for a few minutes, and I said I was going outside, but I had to go to the bathroom. Bad. And within 3 days, I'm fired. Within 4 days, I can't even find out whether I get health insurance. Do I get a job back? What do I need to do? I received no phone calls. I'm not going to go into the human resources issue. But I will say this. When I showed up for my personal review board hearing, my attorney I had to pay $1,550. I didn't have it. My parents didn't. And I'm lucky my dad's military and my mother's civil service. I'd be a homeless right now. When I showed up for my personal review board hearing, they changed the date. He drove 2 hours from Pleasantdale, about 30-year-old Jewish kid, really nice. And I had to sit there and tell him I'd received no phone call, no letter, no email, no texts. And he said, hey, that looks good. You might get your job back in January. I come back, I'm fired. I haven't received a phone call other than, this is your personal review board hearing. If you have any questions, call me. But when I called before that point, back in November, to find out what was going on, I couldn't even get a call back or an email. I got one phone call and I had to make it. Now, I understand people get really nervous about things, but if you can just look at me and say the same thing, I am intimidating. I was intimidating my inmates. If you mess with me and you knew I lived in this city, you knew I was going to get you somehow. I'll put you on the walking trail by yourself with a blower, and you're going to walk it all the way from Flat Rock to Billings. But I did not deserve to be fired. I don't know how that works. I don't think I'll gain anything from this. I want my job back. Somehow. I don't want any money. I want the respect to know that, hey, this guy made a mistake. I even admitted it. But intended can be written in some, if he's on this side of that wall and that lady's standing over there, I know that inmate's not going to move if I walk around that wall. If I'm at Fox and they're around the corner doing the hedges in front, they better finish those hedges and come back within 10 minutes. And I got fired for 10 minutes? The supervisor even working at the building who was there, really nice Kathy, said, he just came to talk to me for a minute, Dr. Worsley. He was headed outside. And I said, if I hadn't had to sit there and talk to you, I was going out that door. Now, I apologize, but I'm really hurt and I'm really devastated that I could be here for 18 years working in the city and get fired for one thing. Not, okay, we're going to give you a chance, don't do it again, but make some different rules, because there's not a correction officer who didn't know me. If you had a problem on your site, come find me. If I was at Lake Heath Park, Watershed 14, if I was in Northside, I did not play. Now, why did I need to tell that to Dr. Worsley? I didn't need to. He only knew me from other people's words of mouth. I only saw him twice in the 5 years he was here. That was at those 2 rallies downtown. I just came to speak because I think it needed to be said. Because one, I'm 53 years old. And it's going to be real difficult for me to go find another job telling them I got fired for a rule or regulation that was so serious, there was nobody standing around it. My truck was backed in. It's over 12 feet. It had 2 mowers on it. There was a dumpster, and they were sitting on this side. There's a fence at Fox, and there was nobody in that loading dock. I had told my supervisor I had been there for 3 months taking care of Fox. I had Fox, Bibb City, and all those parks to take care of. I don't know who called and brought him there. But first off, he tried to say that they were there for 20 minutes. Then he changed it to 10. Then he said I became argumentative. And then I said, Dr. Woods, I wouldn't get argumentative with you. You just don't understand. You can't be rule stickler with inmates. You've got to let them know if you do something, then I know if you do it again, I got you. That's how you write them up. Deputy Warden Thomas is in here to admit, if I wrote them up, they knew they got written up. Don't play no games writing them up for the first time. You write them up once you got them. And I just want to say thank you for listening to me, because it may not matter if I get anything. But my father and my mother sitting there telling me, what have you been doing? I've been working through temp agencies, cutting grass, doing this and the other. And I said, I need to speak, because I saw that lady at the Trade Center get fired for seizures. I saw the other gentleman at Metro get fired for one thing. And I also saw these 2 correction officers. I know both of them idiots. I didn't play in. They could walk by me and not talk to me. I could care less, because I knew they were up to something. I didn't need their money. I never got caught with a cell phone. But any contraband, nothing. 5 years, you know how hard that is? I used to find stuff in the truck and throw it out, and then he'd look right at me. I'm not military. I don't have another check coming in. I don't play your games. And you don't have to be mean. You have to be firm and fair. But something like that, unattended, walk up on me and say that I was really like, what? Okay, we're going to write you up, suspend you. but don't do it again, and we're gonna turn it into, why get fired? To make a point?
I know, Mr. Gibson, I'm sorry to
I know
have to
time is
cut you
up.
off, but the time is up, and we try to be fair to everybody. And we do appreciate you coming tonight, and I'm so sorry for your frustration. It's tough. I mean, the council can't review a personnel
can't.
decision like this, as you know, and you said you acknowledged that you came to just sort of get this off your chest.
Just to
and-
get it off my chest.
And that's what
And I wanted to
public-
meet Mr. Fay.
And that's what public agenda is all about. We're elected to hear folks and their concerns and their passions. And I just make a couple of observations for you to consider and think about. One, you're right. I mean, the inmates it's such an important thing. It just really is. And the citizens take it seriously. We take it very seriously. And even if it's for a split second, and in the circumstance, is one I think that certainly garners a lot of sympathy on everybody's part. But there are protocols and process for when you
What?
need to be relieved and have somebody come
The
and help you
who?
out and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But, and I'm not here
I
to
know.
debate with you.
Did
I'm
you
just-
make insinuations? Just say
I'm
it.
just trying to give you some, hopefully, words to think about, and that may, as Counselor Woodson said, be encouragement to you. But I would say that it's just a really high standard when you're working with inmates. And you know that, because you've been to all those various meetings we have, and in addition to the trainings, we had periodic meetings where the city manager and I and some others would come periodically and talk about how important it was. So you're right, there's no room for error, and being human, sometimes that's a real high bar. The other thing is that we do have the Personnel Review Board, and that's sort of a check and balance on us. I know you said they're not legal, but they are in the human resources world, and so they've been around a long time, and they've seen when policies or practices may not be applied in a good way, and maybe somebody needs another opportunity or chance. So it did go through that process. And the last thing I would just say for you to consider is that, it does speak to your character and your work ethic that you so desperately want to work. And I think it's interesting that you've been here tonight where the entire city's been able to hear that of you. Yeah. So, and I can't continue to, because you've had your 10 minutes, but anyway, I just wanted to make those couple of observations and comments to you, and we appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you. All right, that concludes our public agenda, and we will go into the city manager's agenda at this time. Let's see here. Mr. Hughley.
Madam Mayor, first on my agenda is a mental health court grant. It's Criminal Justice Coordinating Council grant. It's $203,000.
Got a motion and second to approve the mental health court grant. I'm going to cue this for your electronic voting. And it's queued. And it does pass.
I've got a Veterans Court Criminal Justice Coordinating Council grant.
Got a motion and second to approve the Veterans Court grant. Any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, the item is queued for your voting. Okay. So there's a motion and second for the FY18 Family Connection Grant. Let me
And that's
clear.
for $48,500, no match.
Okay. I see that there's no discussion, so the item is queued for voting. And it does pass.
Next, I've got what we typically bring to you annually. It's been a long-standing agreement, but annually an MOU needs to be signed. It's with the University of Georgia extension. And we're requesting to have the University of Georgia and CCG enter into a county extension personnel contract. It's an MOU. It's an annual deal that we bring to you.
We've got a motion, and hold on just a second. What was the question, Counselor Davis? I'm sorry.
Accordance,
Is 5,
in accordance to 4, is it?
is 4, are they conjoined?
Yes, it's same thing, but it's for personnel on number 5. Yes.
Okay,
It'd be appropriate to
to make a joint
4 and
motion?
5, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we've got a motion from Counselor Davis, a second from the Mayor Pro Tem to join items 4 and 5, which is the UGA CCG County Extension Personnel Contract, and also the contract between CCG and the Board of Regents as a second provision of that agreement. We have Counselor Allen with discussion.
On the first item, my question was regarding the cost of that. I think I saw or read where there was no change in the cost, but there's not a number identified.
There is no change. That's the MOU, and then in the second one that Councilor Davis has made a motion on, there is no change in cost, and what they're asking for in terms of the option for retirement is actually a savings to the CCG, small savings.
So the MOU, there's no change in the cost?
No.
So, but what is the cost?
Well, on the MOU, it's just that that's to have the relationship with the Extension Service on the first one.
So there's,
On the second one,
so there's no cost
That's right.
associated with the MOU?
That's right.
Okay, all right. I thought I read where it said there's no change in cost, and that's why I was
yeah.
wondering what it was. Okay. So the second one is,
And with the second one, there will not be any change in the amount funded by the city. They've chosen the optional retirement plan, and it's 9.24%, which is less than the teacher's retirement plan of 11.27%. So there will be a small cost savings to the city because of that.
okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. That concludes our discussion. So the item is now queued for voting. And I think we need one more. Mayor Pro Tem. And it does pass.
Okay, and then I've got purchases. The first is the Georgia Department of Labor quarterly contribution tax. This is something that obviously we've got to pay, and it's a quarterly contribution.
We've got a motion second for approval. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. It's queued for voting. And it passes.
The next one is Taser training cartridges for the Columbus Police Department, in the amount of $35,269 from.
Got a motion and second for approval. Any discussion related to this item? All right, and it's queued for voting. Okay, that item passes. We have a motion to approve items D, E, and F. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. So the items are multi-use paper, carbonless paper, and envelopes for the print shop. It's an annual contract.
We need to see.
Item E is the Government Center pipe repair, and item F is the contract amendment for inmate medical services at Muskogee County Jail. Is there any discussion on these items? Yes. Oh, thank you. Is there a, okay. There's a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem and a second by Councilor Woodson to add a pepper ball equipment for the police department to that. So that's items C, D, E, and F, and we do have counselors lined up for discussion. We have Counselor Thomas first.
I'd like to pull item E for
Okay.
further discussion.
All right. Okay. If there's no further discussion, then we'll go with items C, the pepper ball equipment for police department, D, the multi-use paper, carbonless paper, and F, the contract amendment for inmate medical services. Those three items are queued for your voting. And it does pass. Okay. To Counselor Thomas, and this is for item E regarding the Government Center pipe repair.
Mr. City Manager, this is a, as I recall, it, $350,000. Is that what?
That's correct.
Would you expound on this item a little more? I
Well-
think this is one that we don't need just to pass over.
Well, and I'll let staff talk about the technical details, but it's $350,000 for what we consider emergency repairs to the piping system at the Government Center that allows for heating of the Government Center that we had an emergency with a few months ago, when staff has been working to look into the specifics of what we need to do to try and alleviate that problem and concern. And they've got the details of the number of pipes and boxes, but we've got Holbrook, who's very familiar with our system, and they've done some similar systems in the private sector that would be the source that we would use to come in and perform this work. And so I'm going to ask Director Newman and Pat Bigler, and they're both engineers, to just speak briefly to what we are attempting to do with this first step towards alleviating the concern. Mike, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Donna. There you go.
Thank you. What the contractor will do is actually physically look at each pipe and joint for corrosion. The problem is for every floor of the building, yes, ma'am. And they're trying to do it during the summer months while the boiler system is down. That's part of the heating system, and we don't typically need that during the summer months. So we're trying to get it done during the summer months while we can. So they'll physically inspect each pipe, each joint, and replace those that are corroded and in danger of failing. And we'll have to
And so-
schedule around the courts and their sessions and personnel and that sort of.
And this is simply an estimate of
Right.
what we think we might need to deal with the problem, $350,000. But of course, we don't know until until they open things up to see. And so it's going to be floor by floor, pipe by pipe, box by, there are so many of these boxes that this water, heated water goes through. And they're going to be inspecting all of those boxes, all of those pipes, replacing where necessary and so forth.
And also, I see that this is to come from the infrastructure fund, the OLOS infrastructure fund. What does that do then to that fund? Well, how does that impact? I mean, we didn't plan to spend this $350,000.
That's correct. I'm going to have the finance director come around and speak to that.
So it's part of the facility maintenance funding that we allocate each year to, out of OLOS infrastructure. We allocate X amount of dollars every fiscal year for facilities maintenance out of OLOS infrastructure. And so we've been able to rearrange some of the projects that we initially allocated funding for to fund this particular emergency repair.
So we're having to prioritize, for example, and I'll just say this, the staff, they were going to spend money on elevators at Golden Park. This is a higher priority than spending money on elevators at Golden Park, because Golden Park is not in use. So we've had to prioritize and move around some things. It's what we've had to do.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I knew where that money was.
So it just didn't come out of
And
nowhere.
and what that did then to our balance in the OLOS infrastructure
Yeah, well,
fund. And
yeah.
that we're not going to have to not put a roof on a building in order to do this kind of stuff. So,
We've had to look at things and move things around
thank you,
to get
appreciate
it
it.
done.
That concludes discussion on this item, and so now we're going to take a vote on item E, which is the Government
Yeah.
Center pipe repair. And it was your original motion and Counselor Woodson's second, and this one was pulled for discussion. All right, the item is queued for voting.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, I was consulted. I didn't hear what you said.
When talking to you.
I am
We're
so-
voting.
I'm sorry.
We're just voting. I was going through the procedure.
So I do have an update, Madam Mayor, before you leave.
Okay, hold on. I think we're waiting on, oh, do we have her? I only have 8 votes, but it's showing, oh, yeah, okay, no, we're good, okay, and it does pass. Okay.
And so, Madam Mayor, just not listed on my agenda, I do want to provide an update. There's been a request that we talk about the 13th Street and Viaduct testing. The testing was for consideration of the Georgia DOT project and how the striping would go back after resurfacing. And I've got Director of Engineering Donna Newman here to speak about the project.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just very brief update. We're planning to bring back next week a full presentation on the results of the study. This is something that has been discussed. I noticed today as I was going back gathering my information to start working on my presentation and my report back to you next week. We've actually been discussing this since 2011, 2012, so this is not anything new from Midtown and for staff. But it was an opportunity that came up when we first noticed DOT putting signs up. And the signs up, and this was somewhat confusing to some of the residents, and we got some complaints on this. The signs are actually for the DOT project to resurface what they call State Route 22. We know it as 13th Street to Buena Vista Road to Winton Road and on out to Macon Road. And so Midtown started asking some questions about, you know, can we at least evaluate the possibility of reducing the number of lanes as part of the resurfacing project, because obviously it'll have to be restriped. And so they started asking some questions, and so Midtown and engineering staff and DOT started sitting down at the table, and we had multiple meetings. We didn't just sit down and talk about it one time. We talked about it numerous times. And so it was decided, and as I talked about at council previously, it was decided we would do a test. And we got a permit for DOT to close the road off with using barrels for approximately 2 weeks. And those barrels were removed on the 31st. I know there was some confusion on the timing, but DOT had issued us permits, but it was beginning on a Saturday, and we didn't want to pay staff overtime to have to come in on Saturday to set up barrels. And obviously, your ideal time not to do that is on a Friday evening peak hour, so we elected to do it on a Thursday to start it. And then it ended again on a Saturday during a holiday weekend, and we didn't want to pay staff overtime to come in to remove barrels, and we didn't want to do that on a holiday. So we did it the day after, and that was the confusion in the time. But we did do it, and from my personal opinion, and we had numerous staff riding through the area throughout the 2-week period. Pam herself went through there several times. City manager went through there. We had citizens that were going through there. DOT was going through there, and we were all monitoring the traffic and travel times and looking at delays and impacts. And it turned out really well, in our opinion. And again, we'll bring you a full report. Now, was it favorable to everybody? No, we got a lot of complaints, and I think Midtown handed out some packets earlier to give you some of the information of, they were capturing information, we were getting complaints and comments through the City Service Center. I was receiving emails, city manager receiving emails, and we'll bring back a summary of all those comments next week. Now, what GDOT has asked us to do, or has asked you to do, is if in fact you're in favor of allowing them to reduce the lanes, then they're going to ask for a resolution, and that will be part of the package for next week for your consideration.
Councilman
Well,
Thomas.
and certainly you're going to, well, you'll do an update next
I
week.
do an update.
We're not going to ask you for a vote next week. I just want you to know that, so,
Bill,
but
Councilman Thomas.
Do you have any idea what GDOT's timeline would be? That's one of the questions that I've been asked is, so what's next? And I assume from what you're saying that the next thing would be some kind of resolution, and if that resolution passes council, then well, GDOT can do it whether it passes council or not. Is that right? Since it's a GDOT road, I mean, it's their
Theoretically, they can.
their
Because
call.
they control it, but they have asked for the city's support
And then,
in doing so.
And then they make the decision, and this is another question I've been asked, is at what level at GDOT will the decision be made? Is this a decision that the Sam Welborn level Board of Directors makes, or is this a decision that, you know, the district director in Thomasville makes, or who at GDOT makes that decision?
Mr. Welborn has been involved in some of the communications and meetings that we have, so he is
Is this
aware of it.
typically, though, a decision that would be made by the board, or is it
No,
I
a
think
staff
think it
decision?
goes-
what we will do, when we report back next week, we'll find out between now and then where the decision will be made or how it will be made, and we'll share that with you in terms of next steps. So we know that we'll come and we'll brief you on what the test revealed, and then you'll either support a resolution or you will not support it, and if you support the resolution or not, we'll tell you where the decision will be made at the DOT level. We'll at least find out from
Okay.
them.
And the other thing, you keep talking about a test, and from what you've just reported to us, it seems to me that the test is the engineering department and the city manager and the Midtown Board driving back and forth across 13th Street. I mean, I wasn't asked to participate in any kind of information gathering, and I have been contacted by hundreds of citizens who were not asked to participate in the test. So what did the test consist of?
Well, what we were looking at is we were looking at travel times to.
What, we who?
We being staff, DOT, Midtown was doing it for their perspective as well.
You were soliciting feedback from the public?
We were. We received comments. I think Midtown set up a comment page from their perspective for people to comment. Of course, we had 311 City Links comments from citizens. We had emails from citizens. So we were getting input from a lot of people. But we were physically out there routinely during peak hours, driving it ourselves, timing it ourselves, looking at how far the cars were stacking up, measuring speed. That is one thing that we noticed, or I personally noticed, and I'll say I was a skeptic from the get-go on whether or not it would work and what the impacts would be. But I was surprised with the results with the study that we were doing, and the delays were minimal. The speeds were significantly lower. Midtown planned events so that they could get a feel for if the lanes were reduced, and they could reclaim those storefronts and activities along the sidewalks, and people enjoying biking and walking along that corridor without cars speeding by you. It did significantly drop the speeds from my observation. And so we were doing measuring on speed and travel times and stacking. And DOT was doing an independent on their own. They weren't accepting our data. They were doing their own. They brought their people in to do a very similar thing, and we'll provide those results as well. And again, Midtown had set up a comment page, and they were asking people as part of their independent research that they were doing to time it when they went through the corridor as well. So that was different people coming through at different times, and our times that we were focused on were peak times, were morning, people going to work, evenings, people coming home from work, the lunch hour, and I purposely went that way when I went different places throughout the city just to see what was happening, and I'd sit there and observe for a long period of time just to see what was happening.
I also drove that at various times. I probably drove 13th Street in the last 2 weeks more than I have in the last 2 years, but also would take various paths, if you will, to turn from 13th north onto 10th, to turn from 13th south onto 10th, onto 13th, either way, and come from Lake Bottom across and from downtown back, and so all of that is in there. I am assuming that if there are still people who wish to chime in on this, that there is a way for them to do that. Is there, if somebody has a comment that they would like to make sure that their voice is heard in this, what do we suggest?
The best thing is to call 311, the
Well-
city service center, or to
Well,
contact.
And we can set something up,
Me,
perhaps, on our website, and we'll continue to ask Midtown to collect information
Sure.
for us, and so that when you come back, hopefully we can provide the feedback we've gotten from the public, but you'll provide the data collection.
Correct.
The DOT
Correct.
separately and apart from what the city collected, and we'll see how that theirs compared to what we collected, and then you'll present that as well as the response that we've gotten from citizens.
That is
I
correct.
think our citizens would appreciate some way to make their voice heard.
Yeah.
And we always try to do that. And I do thank Midtown for their participation and their willingness to use their social media to get the word out and to let people know what's going on.
So between now and the end of day tomorrow, I'd like to be communicating to the public how they can provide feedback to the city. And I see that Community Foundation is willing to help in that way. So we'll talk with Midtown, Community Foundation, and the city, and we'll have ways that you can communicate
Great.
for or against. And so we'll bring that information.
Or I don't care.
Or I don't care. And so we'll bring that information, but we will certainly bring the data that has been collected by city and Georgia DOT. And the data is going to be what it's going to be.
I do appreciate what both Mr. City Manager and Director Newman and Midtown has done in this to help pull all of this together. It's been a good effort, and I appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
So let's communicate that to the public by end of day tomorrow.
All right, we've got a few counselors. Mayor Pro Tem?
I do know when they came to council to talk about the project, that it was going to happen. But I think in the future, and only should we have a news announcement at council, but we need to do something full blast with the news media, period. And then have some kind of response place for people to call in because she was saying that some people were saying they didn't feel like they were part of, or asked to be a part of the process. And that way you get information from everybody, not just people that live in Midtown, but individuals who live in southeast Columbus but travel Midtown. And that way, if you got a full blast, everybody can have input. Because I know this is not the only road that we plan to do that to. And so when we start testing other roads, we can have the same thing in process.
Sure.
Process in place, rather.
Okay. Counselor Huff?
I, on the other hand, did go through the test many times and got bogged down. Received a number of phone calls trying to figure out where they could call in to participate, which now something's going to be set up. I did pass one evening when they had one of the events going on, so it did provide some extra parking, but there was parking on the side streets also. But I guess my biggest observation in all of this is I understood, and I had the conversation at one of the meetings about the part of 13th by Logos and Red Lobster. I understood that. At that time, I was told that they were looking at taking a right at 13th and going up to Linwood and hooking in and coming around. So the word on the street is there's a push to see how far that somebody, I don't know who, not saying you all, but there's a push on the street to say, we'll just go until you stop us. And that this is not a city decision, this is a GDOT decision, so if I can get GDOT to go along with this, then, you know, it doesn't matter what the city council thinks. And it's, I'm just back on the page. Columbus at some point has to decide who Columbus is. At some point, you have to bring all this together. You just can't keep pushing against the citizens and saying, this will work. This is working for a group of people. This is not working for everyone. But I say all the time that the bikers, the walkers, the drivers, everybody has to move. And you have 13th Street Bridge coming from Phoenix City, it just unloads. And when they go home, it unloads back in Uptown. You say you want the traffic in Uptown, you want the economic development, you want the business, but you keep trying to downsize the roads to get them in and out. And it doesn't make sense to me, it really doesn't. I understand it if you have an event planned and it works. I saw the event, I didn't attend the event, but I rode by a couple of times so I could understand. And it makes sense. If your goal is to have events and walk and do da-da-da-da, that's fine. But in the meantime, I had 3 meetings in the area over time, and I had some other places to be. And I had to detour some days because it was just crazy. So I don't know who does what when or why they pick the times. But traffic was backed up to the point that I spoke with another person one day that was running through, and they were like, I don't understand. You know, it makes sense at 13th to peel off and do what you need to do. And you can come around back to Winton Road, you can go around the other side, come back to Linwood. But it's like a direct shot straight to Uptown.
Well,
Midtown, Uptown.
Well, let us bring the data. And, I mean, it's going to say what it's going to say, and it's going to come from 2 sources. It's going to come from Georgia DOT, it's going to come from the city, and then we'll have the perspective from the public, because my experience was different than yours.
I know, everybody had a different experience. It's just the people calling me. The people calling me had my experience.
Yeah, and so there were people calling other people with good experiences.
Yeah.
So you hear, I mean, it just depends.
But could you or someone explain to me how you grow to 200,000 people and you make plans to move traffic, and all of a sudden you have a major thoroughfare?
Well,
a major thoroughfare that you're going to downsize?
Let us bring the report back, but these are things that, what was tested on 13th is not unique to Columbus. If you go to much larger congested cities, you have similar best practices. And, yeah, I think about the roundabouts where I've had to go out and convince people that a roundabout is okay, and they were totally against it. And those same people are calling back right now, and they love it. And so change it takes some adjustment, and so let us just bring back the report and present it to you, and you know, and of course, it's a Georgia DOT decision. You can or you don't have to make a recommendation or send a resolution, but it's, you know, you'll decide whether you want to do that. But the data, in my mind, and I haven't seen the data yet.
I mean, I've read over some of it and everything. Change is not the problem with me. Change, I'm all for. I can go along with change any day. My problem is we've gone over the last 6.5 years trying to figure out which street should be two-way, which should be one-way. How do we get people out of uptown during emergencies? We worked through that. We figured out how to move bicycle traffic through the city so people can move. We're still trying to figure out how to get them out Warm Springs Road and other places. I'm for all of that.
But that's a sign of growth and progress.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't have a problem. That's what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with that. What I'm saying is, at some point, if you continue to take your major roadways and do it, somebody's going to get hurt eventually, because you're downsizing where cars have to travel, and you're running from 4 lanes of traffic, 2 each way, and it's just all of a sudden it just down. And you have to make a decision whether you're going to stay in 1 lane to go straight, you taking a left turn or a right turn. Now, as far as the development part of it, I get it. I'm just trying to figure out how do we match the two together to make sure that it works for all, because at some point, I'll say this in a nice way. There are some activities that were just not meant to be on a bridge. I'll put it like that. And I'll wait for the results to come back.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, we have Counselor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, I don't want to be redundant, but I just wanted to say I received a lot of calls, and the vast majority were against what happened. Matter of fact, I didn't receive any calls that were in favor of it. So, just for the record.
You'll probably get some after tonight, though.
I'm sure. Well, there's some people that are for it, and if they want to call, that's fine. But it was very disruptive.
Sure.
So.
All right. We've got Mayor Pro Tem.
I think some people were against it because they didn't know it was going to happen. And when they ran up on it, because the first time I went down 13th, and I was going to keep straight, because there used to be 2 lanes going towards Red Lobster. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it was down to 1 lane. I got kind of ticked, because I said, why they got those barrels out in the street? And it then dawned on me, to Judah reminded me that we had a presentation at, not this Judah, another Judah, that we had a presentation at council and what they was doing. But I think it was because all of a sudden I just hit the street and the barrel was there and the lane was not there anymore. And then after a while I started going down 13th and then across the bridge, and I got used to the lanes being barreled off, and it was okay then. But if I had answered the question there based on my initial experience, I would have been saying, they crazy.
But then you drove it again?
Mm-hmm. A lot of times.
All right, we got Counselor Henderson.
Well, I don't want to reho the same road, but I will say I've also received a lot of calls, and I do think I am going to get some calls now, people in support. And I would ask Midtown that when you are mobilizing your forces to call, try to get some folks that aren't from Midtown, that will say that they work downtown and they travel that way, because those are the folks I've heard from. And I'd be interested to know, because I'm not up on all the traffic calming. I know we tried to do it at one point on, or at least it was presented for Cherokee, and it was presented again another time, I think, on Buena Vista Road down there where you get behind, where you get close to Winton, where close to that intersection is. I'd be interested in a short, keyword short, primer on how they utilize the 3 lanes and what the objective is and what the prototypical area is that it makes the most sense for. Because I know when we went with 3 lanes through a residential area, through over by Windsor Park, and when we were doing a GDOT, well, actually, we took it over and did it ourselves so we could get it done. But we were told by some staff members they really wanted the 4 lanes going through a residential area. And I'm having a tough time reconciling wanting to go through a residential area with 4 lanes and go through a business area with 3. That seems kind of counterintuitive to me, so I'd love to hear some kind of comment on that when these statistics come back, because that just frankly made very little sense to me. Thanks.
Okay. We've got Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one more thing. One point that somebody brought out was when they are coming over the 13th Street Bridge, when they're forced to detour, we're forcing them basically to turn on 10th, if they have to turn on 10th to get where they're going. But 10th is in bad need of repair. I mean, so we're forcing the traffic onto a road that actually is worse than what they were on. And that's a problem. It's a problem to them, a concern to them, because we're taking them off a good road and forcing them to take a detour to get around that congested area onto a road that could cause harm to their car, their vehicle. So, just for what it's worth.
All right. That concludes discussion on this item.
That concludes my agenda, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we've got Councilor Garrett.
I wasn't sure whose agenda to really bring this up on, but I forwarded you some emails, Mr. City Manager. After the article came out in the Ledger about me basically kind of opposing the smoke-free ordinance, at least the district councilors that I've talked to received hundreds and hundreds of emails from people saying they were supporting the smoke-free ordinance. I responded to every email. The only responses I got, most of them said they were not a valid sender. Some were from dead people because I knew them and went to their funerals. The other ones that did respond said they agreed with my reasoning of, what we were proposing that was a compromise, and said they did not know how that email got sent. And then there were a couple who would like some sort of criminal investigation, but of course they'd have to file charges, but they want to know how their email was hacked because it came from their email address, and so they supported, and they said they had never heard of it. But needless to say, the one thing I can agree with the smoke-free ordinance people is I don't like smoke being blown in my face, and that's what's being done with the email campaign and with the leading questions I saw from their survey. And I can agree with them on that, but I just wanted that to be public record because that's very misleading when we get 400 emails over the weekend saying people support it, and then I find out those people are either dead or they did not authorize the sending of the email. So just wanted that to be known.
Yes, sir, and I'll refer that to the city attorney.
Thank you.
All right, we've got Councilor Huff.
Mr. City Manager, if you would, I was watching CNN a few days ago.
Yes, sir.
And I know we just purchased new motorcycles for the police department.
Yes.
They had some motorcycles on a list of Hondas that are being recalled.
Okay.
So from the safety of our personnel, if you would, check into it and see if those need to be checked out before.
Yeah. We'll have the...
Harleys, I'm sorry.
We'll have the fleet manager.
It was Harleys. It was. And they had Harley, they named it as the Harley Police Motorcycle.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, that will take us into the clerk's agenda, so we'll turn it over to Ms. Washington.
Madam Mayor and members of council, on the clerk's agenda, I have 2 items, 2 memorandums from me advising of upcoming board vacancies on our Downtown Development Authority, as well as our Planning Advisory Commission. Have a temporary street closing application for 10th Street for the I Love Media's Old School Block Party. Biographical sketch of Mr. Carl Douglas. This is Councilor Garrett's nominee for Mr. Fernando's seat on the Development Authority. And also Councilor Henderson is also has a nominee, Mr. Selvin Hollingworth. We have resolutions.
We've got a motion to approve items 6 through 9. All those in favor, please state aye.
And then we have resignation from Mr. Verdry. It needs to be received.
We've got a motion and second that the resignations be received with regrets. All those in favor, please state aye.
Also, resignation of Mr. Jonathan Davis, Kel Jackson, and Teddy Reese.
Okay, motion and second that the items be received with regrets. All those in favor, please state aye.
Minutes of various boards can be received.
We've got a motion. Is there a second? We've got a second that the minutes be received. All those in favor, please state aye.
On our board appointments, on the Board of Water Commissioners, Councilor Thomas is going to renominate Mr. Reynolds Bigglestaff for his seat. On the Keep Columbus Beautiful Commission, we've outlined these nominations that Councilor Thomas made at our last meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion and second to approve those 4 stated seats on Columbus, Keep Columbus Beautiful Commission. All those in favor, please state aye.
Then on District 2, Councilor Davis will need a nominee from you. Also, Councilor Allen, Mr. Wanham is eligible to serve again if you want to. Okay. And okay.
Okay, there's a motion and second for something, and I think it's Mr. Dixon, Lewis, Murphy, and Ms. Fluker. Let's see if there's anybody else.
Harden and Bachman.
And Ms. Harden. And Bachman. So, and that's been a motion and second. So did you have a discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
According to this, there's an act by Ms. Lacey Harden.
Mhm.
And she also served on CDU.
She'll have to resign from one.
Right. And we will write a letter and let her know that she has been confirmed from this board, and she'll have to make a decision as to which board she wants to serve on.
But can we hold off not?
We can, we'll do that.
Okay, so that is that we are pulling the motion second for Lacey Harden. Is that acceptable, Mr. Henderson? Okay. All right, with that exception, as to the others, all those in favor, please state aye.
And we'll contact her and see which one she wants to serve on. On our pension board, Ms. Drell Short, who represents the city employee, is eligible, as well as Captain Mark Burnett, as well as Mr. Frey McCormick. Mayor, these are your, these, Mr.
It looks like it
Burnett.
says that Captain Mark Burnett says it's not, he's not eligible.
I'm sorry, you're right, he's not eligible.
Oh,
But
okay.
Mr. Frey McCormick is.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll renominate Mr. McCormick, and then I'll get with somebody on this public safety representative.
Okay, and Mr. City Manager, Ms. Drell Short is, and you can let us know. On the Recreation Advisory.
Oh, wait, we can go ahead and, since there's,
You want to go ahead and confirm Mr. McCormick?
at least as to Frey McCormick, there's a
Is there
motion.
a motion?
Second. And Skip made the motion, Mayor Pro Tem seconded it. All those in favor, please state aye. And then on the Drell Short, I don't know if the city manager wants to check on that, or do you know?
You want to confirm? Okay.
Okay.
A motion to confirm, Ms. Short?
We've got a motion and second to confirm Ms. Short. All those in favor, please state aye.
On the Recreation Advisory Board, Councilor Davis, Mr. Gary O'Bruce has resigned. We'll need a replacement for that seat, as well as Tracy Belk for District 7. And we're checking with the Young Professionals and Leadership Columbus for you, Councilor Woodson. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Great, okay. We've got Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the patience on the council as it relates to the Recreation Advisory Board. I think I've asked many times that we have a discussion on this matter. And, you know, I think for the sake of my colleagues, I think it's something that does need to be discussed. I've had many of my nominees that represent the district that I serve have shared many thoughts with me, and you know, I was here, a lot of us were involved in the original creation of that Recreation Advisory Board, and the purpose and intent and the reasonings behind it. I question as the years have gone by if it's still serving the purpose of the original intent. So I'd like to have that discussion amongst this council to see if in fact that purpose is still there and if it does serve a purpose. And that's just based on the feedback that I've received from my nominees and certainly candidates who have served. Mayor, I would like to request that possibility, and it would be with the intent of just looking at it to see if we need to continue there, or do we need to look at now that we have the nanatorium, the advisory board there. I mean, is there maybe something we need to look at as far as modification or merging, or even doing away with this board at some point? And that's, I think that's worthy of a discussion.
Why don't we put that down as a referral, and we can decide whether it's work session or just as a update? Whatever council, you can get with Councilor Davis and see what he likes. You want a work session? If they want a work session or a... Maybe we could do a survey or something. But anyway, we'll figure that out and get back with you all on how we can get their input as well. Okay, sounds great. Anything further then? All right,
Second.
it's got a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please state aye. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.